And they should
Hi.
be able to hear us now. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Sorry, I had to.
This is my friend Nix, and today we are going to talk about just our experiences about studying, school, and how we managed to get through it, well, mostly, and like what our view on stuff would be, what would be probably improved with the school system, and what was actually pretty well done. These kind of experiences, and also we will be probably discussing online classes as well. Like what did they
For sure.
improve, what did they actually ruin. Like it's actually a pretty complex topic. So yeah, again, this
I
is
actually,
Nix.
I actually want to hear this very badly because I've not had any of the online stuff, and I know a lot of people have, and I've heard both amazing and horrible stories. So this is perfect for boomers like me, I guess that's the term. I'm a couple of years older, but I think I qualify. I'll be good.
Yeah, I think you did finish your studies before this entire pandemic, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolutely. I finished them about like the last studies that I have. I finished 4 years ago or so.
mhm.
So yeah.
So yeah, let's probably start with some information so you guys could kind of understand where we come from and what our experiences would be and why we had these kind of experiences and thoughts. So when I was super young, like little nauticus, basically just something like that years old. I was kind of a genius. I'm not trying to brag, but like
Yeah, keep going. I'm curious now.
I was having kind of an easy time with studies, right? Like
hmm
I could put in minimal effort and still achieve super nice grades in middle
Can I stop
school.
you right there for
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
second? I checked the Siggy Live. I think that's the guy's name, Siggy Live.
Yeah, signature.
Podcast for like maybe like 10 minutes. And I saw the guy give you like what was it the math thing, the math.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I thought it was good. As soon as he said that, I thought it was gonna be like an equation or something. And he was like, "How's like five multiplied by five? Like
I
how
would
much
have
is that?"
legit gone for it. Like I would have attempted to wing it even though I no longer remember. Actually, that's probably a good topic to bring up next, but let's just get over with the
It
current
was
one.
fun. It was just funny to see. You did well, by the way. He did very well. It was
I kind of
like this every single one,
I
and
kind of
I like the very end you added like the way you did it.
I kind of excel in mathematics, so yeah, that's kind of my home turf. But
God
yeah,
damn it! That's what you need to study to be good at E4. I get it now.
I mean it's
I
not
thought
about.
history would be helpful, but it's not.
I don't think the act of studying helps a lot. As I was saying, I did not really study a lot. I maybe did my homework. Like I remember in middle school and in gymnasium, I just basically did my homework at the start of the day. So I just arrived earlier a bit and I used my like half or 45 minutes to actually just get done with the homework instead of doing it at home. So I didn't really spend a lot of time on studying when I was younger. Therefore, I never really established like a routine or like discipline for studying. So that kind of came back to me later when I went to university. And university is kind of more difficult than your regular middle school and high school and so on.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the first
I,
few
I
weeks,
think it's a very too when it comes to anything that has to deal with math, uh, chemistry, and stuff like that. Because I don't know physics, like just the real sciences. Because there you just technically, I think, progress. Sorry, I have a cold. I brought over
it's fine, it's
the
fine.
Rona, not really. Like you progress like on a ladder, like you keep going up and up. I feel that way. It's um, meanwhile for like the humanist side of it, that's what we call it here. The like history, languages type of stuff. It's just generally like if you finish school, I guess like 8 to 12 grades or somewhere there, you're generally very much close to the peak of I don't know, like in literature, you can just keep adding and adding, the books you read, the languages you learn. Maybe, sure, you'll learn, like, as far as I know, in the language section of our university, we had um, just, they learned like two languages max more. Meanwhile, at our school, we learned like four total, I think, and
Wait,
stuff like that.
so can you clarify what were you studying exactly? Like what was the topic?
I studied law in just like the basics of law, like 4 years in law university, and it's not as fancy as it sounds. It's not like Oxford level of shit like that. It's just like it's you come out of this knowing enough to work either as a lawyer or just like at the very bottom of the like prosecution or like the maybe you'll be a secretary to a judge if you're lucky if you're smart enough.
Yeah, so it's less, I guess it's kind of less dependent on your previous subjects in a way. It's more like just generic, just a lot of
It,
different
it's it,
branches.
it's very, I'd say it's very easy as long as you have just time to read, because it's basically just um, a lot of information. It's like, I don't know. I feel like it was very easy to me, just because I was in it. Me and my dad worked a lot of time on that together. Like he was a prosecutor, a lawyer, and stuff like that. So I just had a lot of that experience, I guess. But at the same time, it was pretty easy. Just like open a book, read it. You got the information. You're good, right? Like with math, I feel like there's more. I guess because I didn't study it, I guess I feel like there's more magic to it. But I
Uh,
might be wrong.
what does studying mean exactly? Like just sitting over a book and thinking about it, or actually like
No,
memorizing it?
it's
It's
you just like for law, when I'm debating just taking some books out. It's just a lot of information. Imagine like history. Imagine studying history. What did you really learn? You probably studied history, I'm assuming, in your.
yeah, I did have history class, but can I really call that studying if I'm not really interested or motivated in the topic? Like that's
Yeah,
probably a
yeah,
big
yeah.
part of it. Like
Yeah, no,
it
absolutely,
is
absolutely. That's boredom.
it is very difficult to force study something that you don't
No,
want to
absolutely,
or
yeah.
aren't interested at the moment,
For
or
sure,
just
for
not in the
sure.
mindset even. Like that's kind of a complicated
That's
area.
that's a big part of it. That's a big part of what makes you good at studying as well. I guess it's like stuff that you will will be well studied much faster. You'll learn it much faster, and I've seen people that never really liked some topics, but would always do good anyway. Like as you said, geniuses, right?
I mean,
Or just people that I don't know
that's just
enjoy.
forcing it. I feel like to truly study and do well, you have to first of all be in the right mindset, you know, because if you
Yeah,
are tired or you are thinking about something else, you just can't
yeah,
focus. You also
for sure.
have to like go at your own pace. You can't just rush it or can't just have it be too slow because you will either get bored or you will miss a bunch of critical
At that point,
information.
my man over here, Nordicus, is becoming a Greek philosopher that's gonna discover if the planet is indeed flat or,
No, it's not. Definitely
square.
not.
The planet is square. Everyone knows that,
But
right?
yeah, and you have to always kind of have some interest in the topic, like you have to have a reason why you are studying it. You may need it for your project, or you may be just simply interested in the entire thing. If you don't have these three critical components, I think you will have a considerably more difficult time studying than if you have
For
them.
sure. No, I absolutely agree. I hated the money making part of the law stuff. Like everything that was related to like the private sector. I absolutely fucking hated it, and I loved the criminal aspect of it. Basically, anything related to criminal activity and how to deal with that stuff. I love that, and it was obvious because the teacher at one point I got sick for like 6 months. The teacher was
Oh,
like, "Here's I got pneumonia, a very bad case, basically COVID, but before COVID, right?" And the teacher was like,
COVID
"You've
18.
passed probably every other exam and everything else, every test, everything I had for you before that, like the subjects and stuff like that. I did pass most of that stuff." And she was like, here's like if you just answer a couple of questions, I'll just grade you and stuff like that. It's like it was that easy for me, but everything else was kind of hard. I guess not really all of it, just a few aspects of it were kind of hard. So you're absolutely right about that
Yeah,
too.
I guess the one thing which is really important when you are studying in school is your teacher. Like, are they a good teacher, a bad teacher, or motivating teacher, or some like if you have a bad teacher, it's really, really easy to hate a subject even though you would have otherwise enjoyed
Absolutely.
it. Like, people underestimate the significance of it, but I think it's one of the most
No, it's
important
it's
things
nine
out
ninety
there.
percent of the reason if you'll do good or not. Like you might be interested, you might be bored, you might be lazy, you might be very hardworking. If your teacher is a piece of shit, a rude one, or a
Exactly.
very like I don't know, just a bad person, like you'll have a very bad time. Like for example, I had maybe two very disciplined, strict, hardcore teachers for Romanian, and I loved them, even though they were very disciplined. I had one lazy, bad, mean, very like corrupt, even to a degree. Like you could almost even bribe that person,
Ooh.
and they'd be like, "Yes, more money, right?" Bribes are a common thing for teachers here. Don't worry about it. But the thing is, it's like they weren't interesting. I literally fell asleep on their lessons, and I remember that I never fell asleep on anything. And on their lesson, just once, I fell asleep because it was that boring. The person was not interesting to listen to. They were mean. They wanted just money, basically. You can't really learn with that. Meanwhile, fine, a teacher might be like, as you said, it's like it depends on like the success rate, I guess, of it. It's like if the person's bad, mean to the students, you're gonna have, I guess a worse time with learning and studying that stuff.
And also the
And
test they like make for the end of the semester are way,
Yeah,
way more difficult than the ones that were actually
yeah,
good
yeah.
teachers. I mean, a
But
test
you
is
have to
not.
keep in mind there's good teachers. Even some of the good teachers are also the ones that will not just let you, like just give you a
Yeah,
pass. It's like it's good when that happens, I guess, in some cases if you're swamped
that's what
with
I'm.
stuff. But
Yeah, I
you,
actually
you
wanted
want you
to.
want some you want good teachers still. You want people that will invest their time into you.
Yeah, a good exam is not necessarily an easy exam. A good exam
Yeah,
is what you can
He's,
prepare for
yeah,
sufficiently given
their help
the
as well.
material that you have, and also if if you have prepared enough, you should be able to figure some stuff out at least, like make logical connections and just even if you haven't like fully understood the topic, I guess you could still pass with a low grade, but getting a high grade should be quite difficult. Like, it should accurately measure your knowledge. It's not like you either get a 5 or I guess in Hungary you get a 5 if it's an A, and like the not passing grade where you actually fail is the one which could be considered the F.
Yeah,
But
that's the USSR grading system
oh
likes
yeah,
that type of stuff. It's like even to this day, my dad and my mom will say it's like, oh yeah, I got a 5. It's like that was the best thing. For us right now, it's a one to 10.
no, so just imagine it that way. If a test is either like you are getting a D or an F, or like a A or an F, like
Yeah,
just a binary kind of, like it's not really a
yeah.
binary because
You either
technically there are
pass or
other
you don't,
grades,
kind of thing,
but
right?
if you know enough, you will be getting an A, and if you don't know enough, you will be failing. That's kind of demotivating in a way if the bar is very high. So that's not really an enjoyable test, especially because you just stress over it so much. Like, oh, I have to reach this amount of points, otherwise I fail. That can be very stressful. Like,
I like that comment as well. Driver test theory is more strict and monitored than anything in school. I guess that's true because with driving, you will probably kill people if you don't drive correctly.
yeah, that's
Meanwhile, with school, specifically school, you'll probably not end up killing people, but at the same time, like I don't know, maybe if you didn't listen in chemistry class and little Timmy's like spraying like what's the English term for those different kinds of like
chemicals.
chemicals that would like I'm trying to think of one specific one.
I mean,
I
there's
kind of forgot all of them, but yeah, you know the one. There's at least a couple that you can make very easily that you can
actually
just make acid basically and spray it on someone's face and they
that's
basically die.
kind of like common sense in a way. Like, to not do that.
Yeah,
Like, do not assault people with chemicals, please. Thank you. But
yeah, but
actually,
some
that's
people there's it was funny because there was a study made many years ago about how to make all these signs on let's say nuclear power station like
mhm.
silos and stuff like that where they hide different things. I don't know, chemical stuff, nuclear reactors and stuff like that. They made a study. Scientists made a study. I don't know. Someone made a study. Americans made a study about what would make an easily recognizable sign that would tell you like what is behind this thing in case I don't know like apocalypse happens, humanity sort of ends but doesn't, and then 10,000 years from now like you have humans again but they like see this giant door and there's like a sign on it, it's like chemicals. It's like how would they know what is in there? And
An exclamation mark.
they had to make this symbols like all of these symbols like in a way where people even without education sort of understand that if they spend more than like I guess 5 seconds looking at it. So it's that's a weird path I went, but okay.
Yeah, I guess
What
the
else
part
we
of
got?
the story is that if you don't know something that you study in school, it's usually not the end of the world. You can
It's
just
not.
relearn it. I guess you should be allowed to fail in a way. Like, that's probably my next bullet point.
That's a good one actually.
So
You should be allowed to
I
fail.
I the one thing I really don't like about school is that you are kind of not allowed to fail. That technically you are, but it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
looked down upon. It just feels like a huge failure when in reality you are usually learning from your mistakes the best.
Isn't
Like,
isn't that like big part of why like okay, so you passed the test, you got like a I don't know a 3 or a 4 on that test
mhm.
as you'd say 1 to 5, right? It's like you didn't ace it, but at the same time you get to look at that paper. That's like I never thought about this until after I finished school. It's like you get to look at that paper, you see your mistakes, you see where you fucked up, you see where you did good. You learn that, you'll remember that not perfectly, but you'll remember most of it for I don't know,
But
probably like even to this day. Like I could
mhm.
probably if I like stress hard and like clench my butthole a little bit, I could probably remember what the provinces for Dacia in like Roman Dacia were called or something like that. Even though at the time I like failed one of the like three names, and actually that was a university. Never mind.
Well, that is if you decide to go over your mistakes after the test, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think people should. I think teachers should make a thing about that, like because for me, for example, it worked. And another thing is, I fully agree with you that like it's made so that you would feel ashamed. The reason I actually did the university was less so because I wanted it badly, and more so just because I think everyone sort of has to here. If you don't, like, you feel like you're inferior in some way because people that
Yeah.
like I noticed like a lot of people that like to brag about it. It's like there's nothing to brag about it. First of all, secondly, people that like to brag about it often aren't really that smart.
And they're just
And
hardworking, I guess.
there's definitely like people that I can say for sure. It's like, oh yeah, I've studied with some students that were brilliant and like going very far and doing a lot of stuff, getting very good paying jobs and stuff. But that's like 2 out of 100. Everyone else that studied with me basically studied so that their parents, their friends, they themselves wouldn't be ashamed of themselves, and that's stupid. That's wasted time. We were talking about this with someone who's like, you need more farmers and workers and stuff like that in this day and age, and it shouldn't be like frowned upon to be that. Than having more economists and maybe IT people. Maybe you need more IT people, engineers, stuff like that, right? Like stuff like that, I'd definitely be all up. Good job, good shit.
Yeah.
But it's like you don't need lawyers, you don't need fucking artists, not as many stuff like that, and it shouldn't be like plus also you have the fact that if you tell a person, if you tell them that they failed math, for example, or failed history, it's like good, let them fail, because maybe that way you'd know, that person can stop bothering with that stuff and they'd be able to go concentrate on something better.
I mean, it's
you,
not
you know
even about just not bothering with it anymore, but if you fail something, it's fine, learn from your mistakes and
yeah,
try again.
absolutely.
Like, that's probably my pet peeve is that people are not really allowed to try again. Like, this is the. A lot of times, a test is basically an all or nothing. Like, you have to pass this, otherwise, you just fail the entire class, the year, or you have to repeat
Yeah,
the entire. In
yeah,
high school, you have
yeah.
to repeat the entire year, like all of your subjects, and in university, you have to repeat the subject itself. It's kind of weird how it's just divided into semesters and not just a continuous thing, because it just feels like a wasted semester if you fail a
That's an
subject.
interesting one. Why is it not just one big continuous thing?
I mean,
I
if you,
guess.
yeah, it's basically if I don't pass this exam, I will have to repeat the entire half year semester, and all the work I did was for nothing. It kind of
Yeah.
feels like that way if you fail an exam, and like you should be totally allowed to fail something.
And
Of
keep going and
yeah,
still study. Yeah,
as
no, for sure.
keep going
Like
as
they sort of let us do that here to a degree where it's like, oh, you just get summer school. Like if you fuck up badly, you go during the summer, you study again, you pass it one way or another, you pass it. Like you'll get destroyed if you don't. That's what I mean more than
I
anything.
mean, that's at least an attempt to not have somebody repeat an entire year.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, that's absolutely it. It's like summer school. Just I think it's not the only place that would do something like that. It would be um I think America has stuff like that. I think a lot of countries actually in the world, not all of them, but quite a few countries have stuff like that for when it comes to like failing. It's like, oh, we just go during this period or that period. I think there's even stuff like that here during the winter. If you fucked up like September to November, you could go in during like December or January, like you
Like
know
take supplementary classes, maybe?
yeah, supplementary
Yeah.
classes, write tests again and stuff like that. And uni was a little bit different because you had to do it like generally. If the teacher liked you, they might let you like study like pass it sooner, but otherwise it's like 1 year after. So there's that.
Yeah, and again, there will be subjects that you are not really that interested or motivated in learning, and they are necessary still for just having the basics. So
Hmm.
maybe if you give it more time, like you just mess around with it a bit, maybe you fail it a bunch of times, and then you realize that oh, that actually goes there. That's logical. I see now. Maybe you
Yes,
will
yes.
develop some kind of like motivation for it. But if you just simply fail or just manage to barely scrape by and pass with like a D or a 2, whichever
That's not really
system.
learn. That's not good
Yeah,
learning.
that's
That's
not
not good
learning.
learning.
That's just, oh, I passed it, now it's done. I
Yeah,
will never ever remember this
that's what
again.
your chat was talking about for like so far what we've started. It's like, yeah, that's not the people don't like that generally. I notice people like when they to actually learn something. You actually need time, as you said, time free of, let's say, I don't know, chores, making, making food, doing dishes, cleaning the house, all that kind of stuff. It's like you need to sit down, have good time. I don't know, maybe even go out. I don't know, read the book outside, have clean air and stuff like that. And no wonder the Greeks, like their schools were basically just like generally like open buildings with lots of light, and you'd have probably, all the time in the world you needed. It wasn't like bell rings, you go in, you go out. That's not enough time. That's not enough conditions. You're like a comparison. It's like how they stick like chicken or cows into like these like pens to like industrial levels of food preparation, where
Yeah,
you have like a lot of cooped in hens that are constantly laying eggs, and the eggs are inferior, the chickens are inferior, meat wise, quality wise. Same thing with the studying. I studied for maybe 2 years. I think 2 years. My first 2 years, I studied in a school with 40 students in one class. That was the grade one and grade two. I was doing okay. I was the best at English to the point where I was very proud of myself. That was all that mattered to me.
hmm,
That was also the first time I got like the worst grade. What was it? The like minimal amount of grade you could
oh,
get, and I don't even remember what that was for. I think it was for not preparing my homework and something like that, and I like forgot to tell her to the teacher and something like that. So it was an interesting experience. Meanwhile, my mom was like, "It's like I never got bad grades." I'm like, I hope you're happy about yourself.
I mean,
I'll have something to add about that later, though. Don't worry.
there's always a
It's
first time, when you
yeah,
bring
for
home the
sure.
first bad grade. Like, I remember when I got my first 4, like in probably third grade, I
Yeah,
was very devastated over it. So I was,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah.
my
I
god,
was I
it's
was
not a
crying. I
5,
was a
oh
little kid as well.
no. Then you realize to kind of just accept your mistakes and accept that you
Yeah.
won't always ace everything, and that's kind of completely fine.
That is fine, yeah. To accept that you won't do fine always. Honestly, that's good, because it's like if you constantly just do good and then you fuck up once, but you don't realize that you fucked up, and like you got to know how to win and you got to know how to lose. Otherwise, you probably lose more in the end. But also, point being, the chickens in the farm. 40 students in one class. I had difficulties with certain things. It's like the teacher would not have time for all the students to talk to them if they
Mm.
needed any help. And my parents were like, okay, let's switch schools. Again, not my decision, their decision, and I'm very grateful for it, because I ended up in a school with 12 students, I think, from 40 to 12. It's like you had time, you had a lot of time to talk to the teacher if you needed. It's like I think like 70% of the class was actually the class, and then what was left was just discussions, talking. Like students could go up to the teacher and ask them for help. Hell, I remember some of the teachers were nice enough. It was basically, it felt like one of those like, I don't know, bohemian like ancient Greek schools where you could like just like lay on the fucking chair and just like start discussing like the meaning of life and type of
It's
stuff. So
it's a more
it was
freestyle
good
one.
stuff. It was very, in that sense, it was, the teachers were good enough where they would know how much time they needed, because they were very like paid very well. It was like a private school compared to like the like public schools. I didn't mind the public schools. It was just like the result from one and the result from another was extremely obvious, and more so because there was a lot of students in one and not a lot in the other. Same with, again, that's where the comparison was going. It's like you need time one on one with the teacher and student often enough. And another thing I want to add, if you don't mind
Hmm.
here, if I'm talking too much, just let me know and I'll shut the fuck up for a bit.
No, it's fine.
But
I will talk just as much as
an,
well.
an experience, no, yeah, I'll shush in a sec. An experience I had here that I'd like to share, I guess, was that during school, we had periods when we'd studied like during, I don't know, grade 5 to 7 to like maybe 9. That's like high school, I guess, or not high
Hmm.
school, before like middle school or something. We would have studied stuff in math that they would teach in the first grades in universities in like Western Europe. And I was
Oh,
very confused. I was like, why would that be a thing? It's like, why would these like equations, theorems, and stuff like that, why would they teach us stuff like this? and it was hard. Like it was very hard. Like I started dropping like very very fast after like grade 7 or 8. I just kind of stopped, right, and stopped learning as much and just like gave up and was just like, okay, I'll just pass. I'll concentrate on other stuff. I'll keep passing. But the thing was, um, in the end, it's like they did teach the students a lot of stuff. They did become like some of the ones that, some of the students that did study a lot. They were very prepared. They were very good at their stuff. A lot of them ended up going abroad. This is another point to be made later. But besides that, what I liked about this was that we had, like, when you had less students, um, you had more time to talk to the teachers. Thus, like, these harder like things to do were, I don't know, became easier to a degree, I guess. And in general, in Moldova, at least in these parts, if you have a lot of like bad students, they'll just sit in the back. They'll just do nothing. They'll just, be silly students, whatever.
That's probably
People. They'll be
global.
people. It's normal. I was one of them. I was a silly student as well at times. I was bad at math after like a certain point. I was bad at, I don't know, physics, chemistry, even though I liked all of them. And all that stuff. But yeah, I realized what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So me being bad, sitting in the back, some of them being good, sitting in the front with the teacher, talking with them, this allowed them to get even better. And this is what I like about some schools where teachers actually give a shit, because this is what I'm trying to go for. Is I've had a lot of colleagues that went abroad and studied abroad in France and England and well, mostly France, England, and Germany, because I don't think a lot of students that want to go become like, I don't know, very good at I don't know, IT, math, stuff like that. I
Mhm.
don't think you go to Portugal, or I don't think you go to like, I don't know.
It could be worth a try.
It could be worth a try, right? But the point is, like, they go to those countries, very advanced countries, when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, I have an acquaintance that's like been studying like nuclear science and stuff like that. I don't know, something like that. But the thing is, the guy said they could never talk to the teachers. I hated the idea of that. Like, they could never talk to the teachers about anything, tete a tete, one on one, never. And to me, that is devastating if I had been in that situation, because my teachers in university, they were always open. It was very interesting to discuss with them. It even gave me sort of a boost of, I guess, how do you call this, confidence, when I was able to go in and be like, okay, I fucked up this lesson. I want to get a better grade. I'll go and I'll talk to the teacher. If he's got like 5 minutes, easy, like I'll go prove that I'm good at what I'm doing, and I'll get, I don't know, like a 1 extra grade on top, like 1 to 10, right? Like I got a 9, I want a 10, and that was amazing. I think that was a great experience that I had with a lot of teachers. Not all of them, but almost 90% of them. And then I hear stories like these where it's like teachers actually in the West do not have time for students, a lot of them. And that's kind of hard, dude. It's, I don't know, like, what do you say? What would you say? It's like in Hungary, would they, in school and in university, do they have time for you guys to talk to you? Same question
Well,
to your chat, I guess. Do your teachers give a shit about you? Not all of them give a shit about you here, but it's nice like that here. I don't know. I like that aspect of it.
honestly, in high school, I had a very, very large class size, like a 35, 38 something students, but we were often divided by the end of it, like different kind of levels on different
Mhm.
kind of directions. Like some people went for the mathematic part, some people went for the biology and so on. Like and our teachers, honestly, most of them, this was a very good school, by the way, but most of my teachers did give their very best and they actually managed to, how do I say
Yeah,
it, kind of just make time for everyone, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that
That's
was
very
very
good. That means you
motivating.
have good teachers in Hungary, because I don't know,
Yeah,
like,
but
I don't know the percentage of
I
people
don't
that.
think that's a common occurrence though. Like as I was saying, my high school was one of the best probably in the country,
Yeah,
so this
yeah,
is
yeah.
kind of a biased sample.
It might be, but I
But
think I think a lot of like teachers, for example, I'm non-biased. One of my relatives was a teacher in a very like simple village school, and they would they would. I like that comment. Hungary is running out of teachers. That's probably because that
yeah,
you guys have good teachers and students that don't want to sit in the country. If if it's not like, I don't know, if it's not New York or London or Paris.
that's
Of
kind of
course,
going into politics though. Like why they are making
it's
the
that's
entire
true. That's
environment
true.
is less and less friendly to both teachers and students. But that's an entirely different story. I don't really
And
want to go
entirely
into it right now because I did not
absolutely.
really experience it but like when I was in high school or middle school, it was not really that relevant yet, or not, was not really
Yeah, yeah.
apparent, I guess. So I can't really talk about that. But basically, I think the essence of learning is that you are continuously doing it and trying to just experiment with the guys. And if you have a teacher who actually talks to you and you can ask questions and they respond and they just engage in a one-on-one conversation with you, then you can actually experiment and learn a lot compared to
Yeah.
just sitting in a class listening to a boring lecture and then going
Oh
home
God, no, that was
and
the
yeah, doing
lecture
doing
that
nothing
we skipped.
basically.
We'd skip
And
those. You're
that's
right.
actually, that's probably my experience in university. Like most of the lectures were like that, and one of the lecturers actually
Horrible.
did make a good point. Like he was a younger one as well, and he probably had experience with being a student as well just recently. But he made a
Hmm.
good point that the average attention span of a student is like around 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and the class is around 90 minutes. So how can
Yeah.
we really expect a student to just sit through a class and retain every information and actually have an idea of what happened for the next class? I was always confused on how some people actually manage to one listen to the teacher for 90 minutes, two
Yeah.
summarize it meanwhile, like while the teacher is talking they are just summarizing the entire subject in their minds, and third they actually manage to write it down, like make notes
Oh
for
God, that's
themselves
horrible
for
too.
later to
Yeah.
remember. Like how do people multitask that much, like three different stuff? You have to listen to the teacher and gain new information, you have to organize that information, and you also have to put it on a paper and like make it so that you will remember what happened the next time you read those
How did
notes.
you do it? How did
I
you do
did
that?
not. Honestly, I did not. Most of my
Yeah.
lectures, I was just goofing off, browsing Reddit on my phone and doing fuck all.
Yeah.
That's kind of embarrassing,
And then
but
you
that's
and
what
then
I
you
did.
studied separately by yourself, I assume, right?
Yeah, I just try to obtain somebody else's notes or maybe go through
That's
the
that's normal.
PDFs,
That's
like the
normal.
material. And that was not that effective actually. Most of my knowledge came actually from the lab classes, where you actually
Hmm.
or you actually solve problems, you go through different types of mathematics and other kind of problems. That was kind of more motivating in a way. Like you didn't just sit there for 90 minutes and do nothing, but you actually went through with the teacher and completed tasks. So that was
Yeah.
probably my main source for a long time. Like main source of information even for the lecture, like just piecing stuff together based on what I did on the labs. But it was not really an effective way of doing it, like not paying
No, no.
attention. But honestly,
Can I ask you how many subjects did you have this semester?
this semester, probably five, I would say.
What about last one?
Also five. I kind of did an
Ge-
interesting thing where the
Generally,
recommend
we get about five to six to seven subjects a semester.
yeah, around that. Like you have to do 30 credits a semester on average if you wanna keep the pace, I guess. And my bachelor's was 6 semesters, and I after the first semester where I was absolutely just mentally down the drain,
That's what.
after
Yeah,
having an
I feel
entire
that.
exam season for 2 months, and I was like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore, fuck this. I decided to, instead of taking 7 classes or like the equivalent of 30 credits, I'm gonna take 5 classes and around 22 25 credits every semester, and that was way more peaceful and manageable than the previous
Yeah.
one. In return, I did have to study for a longer time, like instead of 6 I had to study for eight
That's
semesters.
great that you have that option. For us, there's none of that. Like
Yeah,
it's you're very lucky to have that.
so I have a total of 12
Can
semesters.
you
That
explain
is,
that to me? Can you explain that to me? How do you study? Do you have like you need to study for 3 years or 4 years, or is it
Mhm.
like you need to study for as long as you need to study, as long as you get those credits?
Well, you have to complete or graduate or something like that, at least by the regular schedule times point 0.5, like times 1.5. So if you have a course that runs for 6 semesters, you have to
Hmm.
at least get a graduation by the ninth semester's end. Like
Okay, that's fine. So they basically
otherwise
give you a little bit of extra
you will
time.
be kind
That's
of kicked out. You can always just reapply for it, I guess, but you have
but
to
you'll have to
pay
restart.
back you have to pay back a bunch of subsidies if you were subsidized by the government
Uh
and
huh.
so on. It's kind of a complicated system, but
It's weird, but it's a good system. I'd say in general
mhm.
because for us, it's you have for example in my case I have to study for 4 years for bachelor's. I have to study one extra year or two. I think it's one for master's, and for doctors I have to study one more year. So 5 years, 6 years total for like the whole process, and that's basically the whole like lawyer education system that you have. But that's like you cannot fuck around with that. You cannot like be like, okay, so well you can, but that's considered like failing, right? Like if you fail a test, you have to give it, you have to redo it next year.
Yeah, that
So
was the case for me
preferably
as
you
well.
don't want that. You do not want that. Like you cannot
Actually,
choose. You can't choose really. Like teachers will talk shit. You know, people will talk shit, but people do it. People fail, and then that's actually a smart thing they do. It's like they'll basically split. Like they'll put this here. Like like you said, like different, like they'll basically try to get those credits, but it's very inconsistent, dumb, and forced to the point where I feel like there's a lot of dropouts. And honestly, I feel like the dropouts are the luckiest ones. It's like most of the people that drop out that I saw are usually the people that are like, I don't have time to bother with this, but I do have the brains to study this. And like half of them are usually the ones that end up with the job,
well, they are
and the ones
certainly
that
doing better than those who did not drop out but should have.
yeah, honestly, that's exactly it. Sometimes it's better to drop out if you have an idea of what you're doing. If you're scared shitless and you have no idea what you're doing, probably finish at least one like I don't know, some form of higher education, college, university, something. It'll probably help you. But if you're the type of person, there's a lot of those type of people who's like, it's like, bro, I just need like a week and I got a job, and then like you can keep going from there. There's a lot of people like that that just cannot wait to get a job. I don't know. Do you have that experience in uni? Actually, sorry, you keep going about the last thing.
So where was I actually?
My bad, my bad.
No, that's fine. I will probably get my turn to talk as well. So yeah, as people were saying, like taking notes is a very useful way of actually retaining information, but it is
Yes.
just very difficult to take accurate notes and actually understand the topic while the teacher is speaking. So
Especially when there's a lot of that information coming
yeah,
in.
that
It's
kind
like,
of
do
changed
you
with
have
online.
some of these teachers who's like this? It's like talk, 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 talk. And then you
Yeah,
have
I
some teachers who's like, okay, write this down. This is what we're doing. So
both
this
of them are
today's subject
kind
is that
of
like very slow.
yeah, both of them are kind of extreme examples, and both of them are bad for different reasons. But I did have a
Yeah.
teacher last semester who was
Yeah.
very quick, like and also instead of like 90 minutes, they usually went on for 120 minutes. So that was just a fucking wall of text that I made with my notes.
And
Actually,
you
I
didn't
will
use half of it probably.
probably talk about like how online schooling changed this aspect later, but for now, let's just
I'd like
focus
to
on
hear that. I'd
yeah.
like to hear that
You know
because I
what?
still have PTSD. Like I have this little pencil here, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I still have PTSD whenever I take a pen in my hand because I remember ending like this the class by just sitting like this with my hand just because it was like text upon text. And another reason why I liked the idea of never having to deal with anything pen related was like I legit, I guess, have had hand pain and almost PTSD like thing, and it
Mhm.
was like, I'll just use a PC. Laptops are good. A keyboard is
That's
nice.
that's actually interesting because for me it's a very effective way of learning something to just write it down on a
To write
paper
it
or
down,
like
yeah.
in a notebook or something. Like I
Yeah.
tried writing it down on the PC and it was just not the same experience.
You
But
take
like
more time. You see what you're writing, and your body actually,
not
like your
really. It's
mind has no, as in with the pen, with
I
the
guess it's
pencil.
just habit for
When
me.
you write it with the pencil, you have to actually sort of like I feel like you actually have to take more time. Thus,
Do you though?
it's almost it's all I think you do. Like I write with my left hand only, and I got to a point where I was working so much with my dad that I was writing like at an extremely fast pace. I don't know what's your like words per minute or something like that.
Oh
It's
man.
uh it's I got to the point where it was so pleasant. With the pencil, it is slower. It was slower for me. Some people do it faster, prettier. I'm like a doctor, when I write, like you need like a archaeologist to like decipher that
Well,
stuff.
I have ugly handwriting as well. Actually, funny
But it
thing.
still does help. It keeps it here. Like it goes through your hand. It's like almost like the word itself becomes like this is allegorical. This is like philosophical, but it becomes part of you. It goes through your bloodstream into your brain. Like it's harder to write it. It takes more time, and you think about it. You see it right in front of your eyes because most of the time you don't write like this. You look at the thing when you write it. Generally,
I would
and
kind of disagree. Like
yeah,
it's
okay,
not
okay,
the. I think it's very like for me at least because I'm coding and like using
yeah.
the keyboard dot as well. It's not really a difference for me. I guess I just associated the handwriting with studying because that's what I used to do for
That's good.
tens
That's
of
interesting.
years. That's more like it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Mhm.
But Yeah, actually, let's talk about like when the classes were like in person before COVID times. It was very difficult for me to first of all pay attention and second of all actually make
Yeah.
notes. But turns out that, of course, when COVID struck, we kind of switched to an online system, and
Yeah.
thank God our dean actually gave an order to have every single class recorded and like accessible for later, which
Smart.
I'm very lucky about. Like that should be a thing everywhere.
That should have been a
But
thing.
those
Yeah, that should
recordings
be.
actually enabled me to. They kind of gave me a superpower if you are looking
That
at it
is
in a way.
so brilliant, honestly. Can you imagine all the teachers that will stop being dicks because so many teachers are just absolute pricks?
It's
It's
not
like
even
they,
about bad behavior from teachers, but rather
it's just like you have that
the
information.
superpower I've gotten from online classes was time travel, if you look at
Yeah,
it
you
that
can go
way.
back in time and be like, what did he say there?
Yeah, if you didn't really fully comprehend something at first, you could just rewind the entire video. If you are not in a mood to study anymore, like you are just feeling tired,
Absolutely.
you
No, that
can
is
stop
brilliant.
and pause the entire thing. You can chill for like 5 minutes and then continue. Like it basically uh, counts as me being on kind of mental steroids for the entire duration of the class, like continuously paying attention for 90 minutes. The only catch is that it's not a continuous 90 minutes from my perspective. It's a kind of longer, but it also enables me to take everything seriously, and whenever I watch the online class, like when I was needing it and not just in
Yeah.
the time it was held, it made a lot more sense. Like you wouldn't even realize it. You just watch the video and go like, "Oh, was it this easy? I never really understood it before. What a
Yeah.
dumbass I am. Now I get it." Like it just makes more sense when you just sit down and actually fully pay attention to an entire thing, and not just like kind of fall asleep during class or just do some other stuff. Because whenever I had classes, I just browse Reddit or something usually.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't be bothered to pay
Because let's be
attention.
honest, half the time it's like it's in the morning. You're just waking up. Your brain's waking up.
Yeah,
That's
and
why. That's why going to school on a like very much a winter day. It's like you fucking wake up in like 5 minutes, and it's like through the snow. It's like, "Arr."
And also, if you lose your attention for even a second or like a minute, you
Yep,
won't be able to understand where you are, like in the topic, and you can just
yep,
rewind the live session, right? And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
therefore, you just stop paying attention because I can't be bothered anyway. Like I don't get
yeah.
it anyway. Why
I
even
had
bother
days
with
like
it?
that in school as well, where it's like, well, shit. I guess I lost the fucking like. It,
Train of
it was
thought, yeah.
legit moments like that where you'd lose the fucking tack, and I was like, I guess I have to fucking like stop and like sit and do nothing for like 30 minutes because he's already like another like I don't know over there and I'm over here still and I can't keep going. So it was fun, kind of, I guess.
Yeah, and online
But
classes
got
kind of solve that issue because you can just rewind, take a
yeah,
break. It kind of removes the human live element because you can just ask your teacher. Although to be fair, if when we had these classes, we could just message the teachers later on, and we could
yeah, yeah,
basically obtain answers even after the class. So I guess the online classes did bring this positive aspect into the
yeah.
equation, and they also had some negative aspects, I guess, because
It's insane that
if you
you
can,
needed a pandemic to get to the
yeah.
point where you realize it's like, hey, bro, you can teach all these students. They don't need to be out in the streets all day long. It's like if they got a PC, just teach them from home.
Yeah, it's
What's
that's
the,
like
what's the stuff that you didn't like though, or do you want to keep going about what you liked?
no, that's probably the
The
most
only
stuff I
thing
could bring.
it's like a superpower, like you said.
Yeah, and actually that's a two-sided sword because a two-edged sword because if you have a class that you can rewatch anytime you want, why would you bother paying attention during the live session, right?
Oh, so you waste time, yeah.
Yeah, like so you are even less motivated to study like weekly. Basically, what I did
But
was
like you
prepare
are,
for the tests
you're
and
still like you still have this thing where it's like you're not always motivated to study. So, can you say for certain, like, are you sure that there were classes where you think you'd do better if you were just like in class?
yeah, probably like
Oh,
especially the labs because when we had the times before the pandemic, I could at least pay attention during the labs because it was kind of more inclusive.
yeah.
Like the teacher
Like
was there, we
you
could
had
ask
to, yeah.
questions.
Teachers saw
Yeah.
you. Teachers like made jokes about I don't know, like the way you tipped into class today on that day or some shit like that because I don't
Yeah,
know they want
I
to
think
make
the
jokes too.
yeah, I think the lectures were improved by a lot with these online classes, but the labs are kind of a mixed issue because
It didn't feel
Mhm.
lively enough, right? It didn't feel
Yeah.
real. It felt like you're just looking on a on YouTube for like a guide on how
Mhm.
to I don't know,
It was still
this or
useful
that.
to rewatch though, but it
Yeah.
was just motivating me way less because most of my tests during the semester, the last semester that I did, was my routine was basically to open up the entire video series for that class before like
Hmm.
3 or 4 days before the exam or the test and just go through it. That like the entire day would be basically made out of just me studying the videos. And
Yeah.
it was good because I did not forget the previous video by the time I went on for the next one. You know, there's not a week of a break before or between the two. You know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't get to forget stuff, but it also doesn't have my long-term memory in return. So you prepare for a test and you forget it because you have an next test to learn for, right?
Yeah, you didn't learn it as you said. You just like we have word for this here. We have like expressions for that. You just
And you just cram for it, right?
yeah you bookwormed it. You like
It's not.
you
No,
crammed it
bookworming
down
is
one
a
year and it came out the other one.
yeah, bookworming is a different thing. I
I
guess
guess no, it's a different thing. Yeah,
it's for somebody who is immersed in their books a lot. Actually, that's the
maybe
complete opposite of it, I think, because for most of my semester I was doing nothing but just play video games and attend classes like and browse Reddit during the classes, right?
yeah.
So I had a very very busy time when I had the tests, but it's kind of survivable, I guess. It was very stressful though, but it was also the motivating power for me to start studying. I had this
Yeah.
problem even before the pandemic even hit. Like I had to be stressed or be horrified enough by the thought of an exam happening to me in a few days to actually start studying, like to just sit down and because I was never really motivated otherwise. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
topic itself was not bad, but just the thought of, oh yeah, we are going to have an exam from this subject eventually, so just pay attention and learn, is a very
Oh,
demotivating thought
stress
to
from
have.
studying is like stress from like the knowledge or lack of knowledge or something is just like a whole different thing. It's like the whole like how people end up in fucking I don't know. That's even it's a different rabbit hole. I don't even want to go back down on. It's like if you it's case an example where it's like you didn't study enough or you couldn't study enough, and then that shit would just like be I don't know
I mean, I could
pressure
usually
you.
manage to study enough, but I needed the
Yeah,
stress to start studying in the first place. Like
yeah.
this entire
Start yeah to start
weekly
something is it's hard too.
And this entire just weekly, just do this every weekend and progress with it was not really my piece of pie. Like I was really, I guess I do prefer just going on my own pace. I guess just like not having to study mandatorily each week, just going whenever I feel like it, and that
Hmm.
really motivates me when I am kind of forced, not in a like sometimes I'm literally forced because we had a mini test each week, but
A
sometimes I
deadline.
just have
Yeah.
a bunch of projects to turn in. But like if I can go on my own pace, I guess it really does demotivate me. And a subject which was
Wait. Going at your own pace makes it worse
no
or
no no
better?
it not being able to do that makes it worse. So
Okay, not being
like
able
just
to.
take a subject that I was interested in, for example, and the fact that I had to prepare for it weekly kind of made it way worse.
Yeah,
Although
yeah,
to
for
be to
sure,
be
for sure.
fair, that's another pet peeve of mine related to that is that if you have to prepare for something each week, you
Yeah.
won't be able to do anything on your own. Like I guess it's a weird feeling because you won't have enough motivation to start something like a passion, not even a
Hmm.
passion project, but just to look into a subject more because it interests you, because you're already tired from being forced, not even forced, but think about it this
Obligated.
way.
Yeah.
If you have to choose between something that's mandatory for you and the next week the teacher will be checking it or you'll be having a test of it, and between something that actually is interesting and you would like to dig into it a bit more but you just don't have the time for it, which one would you choose? Obviously the mandatory one, right? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of a bad thing because if you are not really for something that's being mandatory, then you just experience it as a negative thing and you just hate the entire process. I mean, a
Yeah.
weekly test is a good thing. Like actually during the pandemics, there was
Right,
one
it's a
of
good
two.
thing. You like the weekly tests? Is that
In
what
a
it is?
weird way, yes, I'm trying to like justify this train of thought because one of
Hmm.
my best classes were the weekly tests during the pandemic, like during the online thingy, because
Yeah.
they just recorded a video like each week, a lecture, and they
Yeah. Yeah.
just told you, oh, there is a test, you have to turn it in by the start of next class, right? and you
Right.
can do it whenever. You can watch the lecture whenever you want. Just make sure that you finish it by the start of next week, right?
Okay, by
And
the
that,
deadline, yeah.
yeah, then that was, I think, super motivating for me actually, because you
When
have
you
all the
had
time
more
in the
time to
world,
do it when
yeah.
you wanted. Yeah,
You
yeah.
can do it whenever you feel like it, whenever you are not tired,
So out
and
of all of
yeah,
this, what I get is it's nice to have more time to study, but
just study whenever you have
yeah,
the energy for it,
bigger
right?
bigger time. Some people do like it when they. I had colleagues, a lot of colleagues that were just like they enjoyed the pressure of it. I personally did it. I'm more like you. I think I
Mm,
like to have my time. I even hate to this day my thesis that I did on the
well, I
whatever
can't say I did not enjoy the
university thesis.
pressure, but it's not a very, very healthy thing for the mind, right?
Oh, it's not healthy for the body. Like I can tell you for sure. I was so stressed in during the last year for many reasons, more than just university and stuff. That I got a skin condition, which is like
Mm.
directly comes from stress, right? Like
Oh, ooh.
it's a kind of thing. So don't smoke and get stressed. Like it's a horrible combination. And the thing is, it's but some people live off of that. Some people enjoy that. Like I remember I had like 1 month in school where we didn't have much to do, and I was dying on the inside. I was like, bro, I'm bored shitless. I need to go back to like having stuff to do every single day. And that could go into like another discussion about how some people that like their jobs cannot just stay and do nothing. They need a job. That's why people like do jobs and like jobs.
If you are on the topic of motivation, I guess another way of motivation that I never really utilized is studying with friends, probably, like, or with like
Mm.
classmates,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
was always a lone wolf in a way. Like I didn't interact with people much, but turns out if I just made the minuscule effort of talking to
Like the
people
smallest effort. Yeah,
and like
just
to
say
just
hi.
studying together, all the people, I guess, perceive a different side of the same class. So you can
Yeah, for
always
sure,
just
for
make
sure.
a more complete picture if you involve more people.
Were you
So
often a very much a hermit, a recluse
yeah, I
during
just
school?
went to school and went home and played video games because that's what I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
And
get that. I get that.
yeah, like just having study sessions together does first of all motivate you to even start, because if you are pressured by others, like if you made plans for them already, you can just chicken out of it. Like you can
Yeah,
deceive
yeah.
yourself, but you
That's
can't
true.
really.
That's true. That's true. The chicken out. Yeah.
Yeah, you can procrastinate on your own, but it helps with procrastination, I guess. That's probably what I struggle with the most. Like I explained
That's
before.
not only you. That's not only you. I knew amazing students that struggle with procrastination. Basically, being lazy. Basically, you're not lazy. You're just protesting against the system. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting because now it's kind of taking shape on like what I want to do for my final project. So I kind of have a selection of subject that actually interest me and I actually do bother a bit more with. So before that I was just a generalist, like just take a bit of everything and be ready for anything really. So
Yeah.
just I was very stressed over not knowing something from a certain subject. Like, oh my god,
Oh,
I
for
I
sure.
did study this like 2 years ago and I don't remember anything of it. Like, what am I gonna do if I need it in the future, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and now that I kind of have a direction to go towards, it's kind of less stressful because if I don't know that, then that's it. So what, I can always read it if I ever need it again, but it's not really a critical thing to like not remember. And since because I was always cramming, my long-term memory was basically non-existent of
Yeah.
subjects. So
Like
I
some of that stuff gets better with time. I feel like after I
yeah.
finished uni, I actually I studied German for like 6 years,
Ooh, yeah, I
and
did for 4 and I don't remember anything of it.
right, and like the more I think about it now, the more words I sort of start remembering, and like even some like grammatical rules and stuff like that. Like
Krankenwagen.
it can't convey. Yeah, yeah, that's
I
it.
just
Yeah.
love the like combine or the fusion type of words, like the very long words that actually are made out of different words and they just
Yeah,
make
Kanken
sense.
and Wagen.
It
It's
it
like
looks very incomprehensible, but it actually makes sense, right?
it does. It does. It's very. I always said that French is a language. It's a language of lovey-dovey motherfuckers, and like German, it's a language of hardcore engineers. Where it's like, my German teacher would also add that. That's what I told her, and she very much liked it. But she also added it's like if you learn to learn German is like to learn to disassemble a like I don't know, like a Mercedes car or like a Volkswagen, right? Like it takes you probably like 30 years, but you'll be very good at both of them if you learn at least one.
Honestly, with German, I hated the like grammar rules that
Grammar, yeah, the
and
grammar
the der,
stopped me
die, das, and
completely.
all
Like,
the different variations. I just couldn't get my mind behind it. So, but I
yeah.
guess a good point for both of us that we brought up German is that to truly learn something, you have to keep using it and keep repeating it, right?
Oh,
Like
for sure.
you can't
Oh no,
just.
I have an actual example of that. Like I stopped talking English during my first year in
Mhm.
university. After we've almost daily, like every 3 days a week, we talk English in school, and then I did that in World of Warcraft or other places online, and like actually talk, not just type. And then we went to university, and most of the students in my class would not know even like. Also, tip to people that some if you're young enough, I know there's a couple of people in university that are younger, probably a few that are older, but learn as much as you can early because you never know, you might need some of the stuff later down the line in university,
Mm,
and it will help you sometimes. I
actually,
did not have to study English. I did not have to study two other subjects. One of them was
honestly, a counter.
yeah.
I would counter that actually. Like,
You could sure. Yeah, I can see some of
I
them.
don't
Yeah,
think you
I'd
should.
say just learn English. Learn English is what I'm saying.
Okay, English is very important and maybe an exception to this, but I wouldn't force you
Don't
or
force.
don't
Oh yeah,
force
no,
yourself to
absolutely.
learn because you are young. Like
If you
you
can
hear this.
learn, if you see that you're good at it, like Noricus.
Yeah,
Noricus is a smart boy. If he can learn, if you're not like forcing yourself too much where you stress and you hate it, I'd say absolutely waste some of the time that you could be wasting on, I don't know, like chasing after girls and like obviously not all of the time, you got to chase some girls every now and then too, but spend more time studying and you'll probably not have it. I don't say you'll have a better life, but you'll have an easier life when it comes to university and stuff like that. Some of the stuff that I studied in school, you'd be surprised, for lawyers you still need some math, very small amounts, but he still needs some, especially for criminal stuff. Which I was very disappointed. I was like, I came to this bitch to absolutely ignore math and never have to deal with it. And then the teacher was like, it's like,
yeah, but
but
my
yeah, no.
point is that you shouldn't just be studying because somebody told you that, oh, you are young, you are having an easier job with studying, so just study as much as you can. I mean, that makes sense, but that's also a very counterproductive thing to say because
True,
you are
true,
just
true,
feeling
true.
pressure to
Yeah,
study.
don't be
So
pressured.
instead, just
I'm
pick
talking shit.
something that is actually interesting for you. Like just whatever, even if you hate an
That's a good
entire,
point. Study what you
even
like.
if you
Study
hate a
what's interesting.
class, if you found an interesting topic in the
Yeah,
book, for example, just dig into it a bit more. Maybe
yeah,
talk with the teacher after the class or something like that. So maybe participate in voluntary just after the school classes or some like that.
for sure.
Just
No, that's
ask a teacher about that. I'm sure they will be happy
now,
to elaborate
Mr.
on different
Noricus.
topics. So
I
if
have something to
that's
add here.
yeah, that's one thing I was probably missing when I was younger, that I didn't just bother to dig into anything and like master how to even learn something or how to look into a topic a bit more, so I can just do it as well as I wish I could. So that's probably what I would recommend you to do if you find something that you like and is interesting to you. But if it's not interesting to you or if it's not really motivating for you, then don't really force yourself. It's not really a tragedy if you.
I agree with that.
I
I
think
actually agree
the
with that.
best takeaway from any class should be to just know what's going on in general. Like you don't have to.
True. That's what I honestly wanted to say more. I
Yeah, you
just
don't
that
have
what you're
to
saying.
go into the specifics. Like you don't have to classify every single animal for biology class. You just have to
Yeah.
know some basic rules for
Just
it.
listen when you can.
And just summarize it for yourself a
This is
bit
more.
and
This is more
retain
of
the
what I wanted
very,
to say.
very
Yeah.
basic stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you retain that basic stuff, you can also always just go into it a bit more whenever you need it. You will have a very strong basis at least. Like you did understand it once. You didn't really memorize everything, but the entire picture kind of got pieced together like a puzzle at least once,
Two, exactly.
which makes it a lot
So
more
to
easier.
to to help with your points, to add to your
Mhm.
point, this is what I wanted to start with, but I didn't. The Chinese language has 40,000 characters. I don't know what the fuck that is, but it has 40,000 characters. Is it? I'm assuming letters, different kinds of letters.
They aren't
Um,
really letters. They are like, how do you call it in English? Not
Symbols.
not symbols, but like parts of words, I guess.
Okay, exactly, right. So the thing is, though, apparently, out of all those 40,000 symbols, letters, parts, most students will only really learn from like 3 to 4,000 generally.
Yeah, the most common
So
ones,
this
right?
is this is yeah. What was that?
The most common ones, right?
The most common ones. It's like the point is, it's like you can learn 40,000 if you want, but it's probably not going to help you. But definitely like listen when you can as much. Like I don't want to say more than you have, more than you can, but definitely as much as you can. If you can fit it in, sure. If you can listen, sure. But don't like, as you said, don't stress over like something that you can't control. Really, I guess. But if you can, all power to you. It's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, that's actually funny because my English vocabulary is, well, kind of shrinking because I haven't really practiced it lately, but my English vocabulary which I'm listening to is way, way larger than my spoken one. So even if I'm not really using that many colorful
Hmm.
words, like, I'm kind of struggling with it sometimes, I still manage to obtain a lot of them and kind of at least figure out what the
Hmm.
meaning is from the topic, or just even learn the entire word. But
That's part of it. That's part of
yeah,
it. You don't always do
that's
it.
just
You don't
listening.
always.
That's just listening to it basically, and
Yeah,
spending your time on stuff. So even if you don't fully master something, it can help you a lot. Like
for
just
sure.
just
No.
oh, I have heard of X once can be a very useful thing for you if you have to like come up with something. Just the basic knowledge of, oh yeah, I did hear of this before, so that I guess I can look into a bit more. I'm just kind of struggling to make a point here, but I guess you get what I mean, kind of. Just listen
Yeah,
with
yeah.
half ear, I guess. You don't have to fully pay attention and remember every single specific, but even if it's not that an interesting class, just get the general idea of what's going on. I guess it helps a
Yeah,
lot, and
exactly. Yeah,
y-
listen as much as you can, but don't choke on
yeah,
knowledge.
you
It won't help you.
get to walk away with something useful, and still you haven't really uh, overcommitted to it when you didn't want to. So at least
Hmm.
it's not a waste of time. Because waste having a class that is a waste of time because you just never bothered to learn it and you completely even ignore it, maybe even failed it because it wasn't a mandatory one. I mean, why even take the class if you never really try to figure out what's going on at least?
Yeah, true, true.
Like just spend
That's
your
that's
time on.
something I like about your education system more. It's like the fact that you can choose a few
Well,
things.
in university
We had
we
we had about 11 subjects in the first semester, and I was dying internally.
well, we have a certain mandatory part that we have to complete, and then we have a few like free credits which we can supply from whenever we want. So
Hmm.
that gives us some flexibility at least. But yeah, as I was trying to make a point earlier, true mastery and true expertise doesn't come from just learning from books and preparing for exams. You have to use it continuously and improve it continuously
Yeah,
to
for sure.
have a stable basis or a stable knowledge, I guess.
True, true, true.
And
Absolutely.
like I have studied a lot of different subjects and I couldn't really recall at least half of them right now. So but if you actually,
Same.
if that's actually something that I really regret not doing, is that I didn't just make a little project of each class that I completed. Just a small project to remind me like what I've learned or how to utilize it. Because if I look back at it now, I can't really recall what was going on. But like just taking the time and just digging into it a bit more can really go a long way. Like
Yep.
like this summer, I started doing the neural network practice that I'm doing, and oh boy, it is a lot different than my class that I had the last semester. So it's kind of a whole new perspective on it because it's no longer a mandatory thing for me. I can just do whatever I want in the summer, and I decided to work on a project because why not? And if it's not
Hmm.
mandatory anymore, it's a lot more different. I feel like just learning by yourself. I guess I
Yeah,
do have
yeah.
to master that aspect because soon I will probably be finishing university and I have to study by myself. And also, I think you did mention the driver's licensing earlier, right?
Someone did mention it.
Oh
Yes,
man,
yes.
compared to university, it was a completely different experience. Like first of all, the when I already passed like the traffic laws test, that was
Hmm.
very very similar to the regular school that I was used to. But the driving part, oh man, that was entirely an exercise basically, and not much lecturing or any theory.
Yeah, yeah.
And
The
wow,
practical aspect of it.
the approach of the teacher even was very different compared to like a university students or university teachers approach. So that was eye-opening in a way, but I did manage to pass
It's
it in
more
the end.
real. It's real life right there,
Yeah.
compared to like most stuff when it comes to university. I remember doing what four the 3.5 years of university, and by the end of it, we had to do some practice like for half a year and more like 4 months or something. And it ended up being like a complete eye opener. And I was like, yeah, this is 4 years of time wasting, like rubbing your nose in books
I mean, it's only theory,
and
right?
it's helpful still. It was interesting. I don't regret it whatsoever. But and I found out a lot of interesting things out of it. But at the end of the day, the practical part of it and the theoretical part of it was so different. When it comes to, I guess, I don't know, the lawyer part of it. I'm sure some other people would disagree when it comes to, like, I don't know, maybe
I
medical or
mean,
something like that.
both are important because if you don't have the solid theory done in like a critical area like theo or
Yeah,
like medical areas or security
for sure,
areas
for
or
sure,
so on,
absolutely. Yeah, you
yeah,
absolutely
you will be
get it.
struggling, but you kind of cannot just learn theory alone. Like the human brain cannot motivate itself enough to just keep doing at least tasks that it perceives useless, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you don't perceive the task as useful, you can keep forcing yourself, but eventually you will just not even break down, but just stop being able to master that much energy to learn. So I really think that there should always be some kind of motivation behind it. Like you can just one day decide to learn, I don't know, Greek, for example, without any usage. Like, why would you ever do that? Sure, it may be a good practice for you, but
You
it's.
know what? I will
Mm.
disagree with you here. I started learning Welsh without any usage except for themes, and
I
I
mean,
still to this
that's
day
one reason.
love.
That
I love the word
hey, that was a reason at least. Like
No, the
you
reason
had a
was because
goal.
the language itself is called funny. It's called Camrag in their own language. It's actually Kimbreg,
There
but
you go. That's a motivation, but like
yeah. Actually, no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. You're
no, that
right.
you weren't really forcing yourself to learn something just for the sake of oh yeah, let's expand my knowledge. Let's train my brain. No,
Yeah,
you did study because it was funny or it was motivating in a way for you.
I
So
guess.
you always have to kind of find some justification for yourself to not stop studying, especially if it's not like a fixed
That's
program.
true. I couldn't think more past the. It's like, oh, it's kind of funny, and then it's like, oh, I actually have to learn this. Fuck.
Yeah, that's where it kind of just stops. Like German was funny for a while, and then the grammar level did increase, like the difficulty of it, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore, thank you. And now I kind of
Hmm.
regret not doing this, but you know, what could have I known back then? I had way more problems with other subjects, so I was focusing on them more. Like this is something that I really dislike about the current system is that teachers sometimes it feels like that some teachers think that their subject is the only one that exists for students. Like you know they think that you should take the entire weekend and like make projects, just revise, maybe I don't know turn in a homework or something, and for the next week basically. Like
Hmm.
man, how much time do you think we really have with five other subjects there?
Yeah, that's true. Like they don't keep that in mind. It's not. It's very silly.
Of course, you should be doing some practice at least at home, but like if all five teachers from the five subjects think the same way, you will be having a lot of homework, and I don't think that's even realistic to complete. Like you have to have some free time, you have to have some recovery
True,
time.
true, for sure.
So unless you and this was probably part of the reason why I took less subjects after the third semester, because I just wanted to have some breathing room there.
Hmm.
Like if there's a mandatory thing for each week, like a big project, not just a small oh yeah from lecture to lecture, like actually a big project to turn in, then I don't think I can even master the motivation to like look into it in my free time. Like it's just not motivating. It just feels like a curse or something.
Yeah, no. I remember that was like I got to a point as well where it just kept reading and rereading the same text over and over, just like not seeing anything through it, even though I was like constantly rereading it. If you're not motivated, it's horrible. And there's
Yeah,
another point to make about what you said earlier, that you need time. Like motivation can come and go. Like look at it like an artist. Sometimes artists have their muses, sometimes they don't, and
yeah, the artist
that
block.
counts for a lot. Studying is like an art to a degree.
It
Probably
is,
not.
yeah.
Maybe it is. Also, sorry, I'm a little bit sleepy only because like I came back recently, and
No, you did stream a lot already, so
it's okay. I can keep going a little bit if you want, and maybe share a few other topics in regards to this. I actually wanted to ask you, what do you think about your parents' experience with studying? Do you think we're
you
luckier,
mean their
we're less
attitude,
lucky?
or you mean their attitude to my studying or their studying like
Their
back
own,
then?
their own. Like, did they like it more? Did they think they were lucky,
Mm,
luckier? Did they even realize what you have to
I
go through?
I guess they had less distractions at least because the internet did not really exist back then.
Hmm?
They also
They
had
could do other stuff. They could do other stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
I'll
it's
give you an
it's
example.
is
My
more difficult.
go for it.
It's more difficult to like go out there and play football than, for example, just instead of studying on your PC, just go on Facebook and scroll for a while. It's way easier to fall into that hole.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it's just a and the internet is designed to distract you basically.
a
Like
little bit.
you have
Yeah,
to fight against that all the social
you
media.
have to find a limit yourself.
So
Um,
they also had kind of less of a choice because the Soviet Union was there back
I think
then, and
in our
so
parts at least, generally, yeah.
yeah, and they also were probably more disciplined in a way. The entire system was more like rigid and
I want to
unforgiving.
think the same, but it's like I remember stories from my dad about my grandpa. That I guess it wasn't the USSR, but still, um, like they were more disciplined. You say that's true. That's very true, and to a point, I guess. But the bastard, my grandpa would just run away and hide under a bridge for
That's
the
the way to
duration
do
of
it.
school. He's yeah, he did that, and he was not the smartest person, but he was smart enough to become like one of the richest people in the village or something like that. Right before the USSR happened, right? Not a good idea. And like through hard work, the guy was just a farmer. Like did stuff though. It's like to him, school didn't add much. Like he learned from his parents, he learned from working and stuff like that. You can still learn from stuff like that.
I mean,
It's
if this outdated school system didn't work for him back then why would it work for the students today? Like, I think a change is very, very overdue already. And a lot of
yeah.
alternative schools do pop up ever so
But
often. Like the
the
Waldorf
thing is, it's like.
schools.
Mhm. There's like my grandma, for example, another person. It's like for her, she never really even had the school stuff. Like I don't think they were forced into it or anything like that. But
Hmm.
she chose to go and study by herself. I think later down the line, nursing related
Yeah,
stuff,
that's the
right?
way. Like if you go by yourself, then you are way, way more motivated than if it's
Yeah, and she
mandatory.
loved it. She loved it. But to the last day she died, I think she still believed dinosaurs weren't real. So it doesn't matter even if you study in a very smart subject sphere, silly stuff can still be present.
Hmm.
Love her to death.
Well, that's just how life is, but you can't really account for that now, can you?
Yeah, no. It was
But
just a
yeah,
funny a random thought I had. It was like she was a smart woman. Studied for 3 years, by the way. 3 years was enough to be qualified to help women give birth. She was like a birth nurse, something like that, a
yeah, I,
midwife.
I actually have a huge respect for doctors because I don't know if it's just me, but I can take it a bit easier, like not study everything completely sure. If it's like a security critical component, then I might have to look into it a bit more. But doctors, man, every single day is a challenge for them. Like if they fuck up even once, then their career is pretty much over, right?
That's the thing. That's the thing, though.
Like
Yeah,
you
you
have
can fucking lose your life. You can lose
your
your
license,
job. You can get
yeah.
fired. You can get sued if it's malpractice. That's true. A lot of things though count for like you can't really count for malpractice if if the country itself is not ready for certain things. It's like my dad
Mm.
really kind of was almost a victim of that, but at the same time, it's like the doctors weren't ready to like they knew what they had to do, they just couldn't do it, right? So it's hard, but I think doctors generally here study for about 6 years. That's without, I think, without the master's degree and anything above that. But that helps you, lets you enter into, into the working sphere. And the thing I notice about doctors in general, half my family is either lawyer related stuff or doctors usually. It's that they like it, they enjoy it. There's no like, they're the type of people that like physics, chemistry, math, and just like biology, right? Like to them, that's very interesting. And one of my best friends from school, he'd always be like his like you said, you'd not really make friends in school when you were younger. You just like go in, study, go back home, play video games. It's like this kid, on the other hand, he'd like go back home, he'd read books. Like
I
to
mean,
him, that
that
was very
that's
interesting.
that's similar, I guess, to today's me. Although
Yeah,
I
no,
did make.
that's you're basically like doctors think the same about how you will be when you will be like, I don't know, in working in your own sphere. It's like these IT people or like these math people or like these like, I don't know, like these people. It's like, how do they do it? It's so hard. It's like
Mm,
for everyone, everything else is going to be hard. But it's very like I find medicine very interesting as well. I actually considered it, but um, it's a matter of like, I don't know. You need to dedicate a lot of time, and I didn't think I was ready for that,
yeah,
right? So,
I did hear it somewhere that the way to actually study properly for university is to treat it as like a full-time job.
oh,
So
absolutely,
8 hours every day, even if you don't have a class that day, or if you just
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
maybe a single class,
I
you
can
use the.
guarantee that that is true because I studied a little bit less than 8 hours a day, and I didn't end up with the
I mean,
best case.
if I average the time I spent, it would probably measure up to less than 8 hours a day. But as I was saying, I didn't usually study when the actual class was held. I studied before the exam mostly and
Yeah.
way more intensely. Like it's I sometimes I wish I could just do it every week, but I just don't have the habit. I guess this bad thing that I was too clever back then and I didn't really develop any like studying habits is still haunting me
Disciplines.
today. Although it's a bit less now because I have a way of solving my problems with just full tryharding for an entire month, which in return destroys me mentally. But that's at least one way to solve the issue.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, that's I guess mandatory studying is always having side effects on you. Like you can just force yourself to do something that you don't want to. I mean you can, but you require a lot of willpower for it, and one day you will run out of it and you have to replenish it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. Like,
I mean
yeah.
I was nearing some mental breakdowns before some of my exams. I did
Mm-hmm.
manage to get through them safely, but it was very difficult and I had to power a lot of willpower into myself to even continue just working on the exam, right? And again, I think
Mm-hmm.
somebody did bring up the exam types earlier, like the multiple choices or the essay ones. I would say honestly, especially during the online classes where students would have an easier time of like to cheat, especially then the essay ones where you have to actually use your own brain and like to logically piece information together and answer a question are way better than just multiple choice ones. Sure, multiple choice ones are easier, but anyone can pass them really. It's just memorization. I really hate actually I really hate memorization, even though that's what I was doing most of my life.
Yeah, that part, like
It's
memorizing, like you didn't like that aspect of
it,
studying.
honestly, I think memorization has its uses, and you have to, of course, train your brain because you have to hold a certain amount of information inside, right? But for the most part, memorization is useless. Like, this is information that you can just always open up your book later about and just read it
I had a
again.
lot of teachers that would disagree with you entirely, and I disagree with those teachers. I think the same like you a little bit. It's like that's how lawyers work generally. Uh, a lot of them, at least. Like my dad's the other type. He'd like try to memorize. My brother, on the other hand, he's like, okay, so I have a sort of a vague understanding of where I can find this information, and I can just get there slowly. Just a couple of clicks or like a couple of pages, like move a couple of pages. That's how a lot of lawyers work. You sort of have to just know the general
Yeah,
direction.
you
That's
have
like
to
how
have
you work
some
with
bookmarks,
EU4,
I
right?
guess.
It's like you have it's like Moldova's approximately in the east, like next to like the Byzantines and this and that. It's like you don't necessarily need to know exact coordinates. If you do, you Google it, you check it out. Not always.
Yeah, it's like I guess you have to at least immerse yourself one time into the subject and have a deep understanding at least one time, and later you can just recite it. You can read your notes always. Like I just hate the entire like culture of having to keep everything inside your mind. That's way outdated. We have the internet right now. We have books. They had books even back then when they came up with this. But
I'll
you
say one thing though, like you're not the type of person to I don't know, you're not the person that's gonna how do I put this? Some people memorize and for them that's perfect
no, I
because
memorize
it's
as well, but I hate it.
I do too, and I also don't like it. I it worked eventually. Like my best strategy was like, as even if it doesn't work, just repeat it 100,000 times, and by the morning you'll probably know it. If it's a
Actually, when I
if it's
was
a poem, it worked for me. If it's not a poem, well, tough luck. You'll have to learn more
okay,
than one day.
sure. I I
It's
actually a
that's for me. That's just
counterpoint
for
to
me.
that I could bring up that memorizing can help sometimes, like going over the thing over and over again. Like even if it's a poem or if it's calculus, for example. Let me just get a concrete example. So when I was studying for
Yeah,
my calculus 4 exam, calculus 4 by the way, just it's a nightmare. Don't recommend it. But when I was studying for it, like I had to take 11 days, like full 11 days of time to just study and memorize every single theorem there.
yeah.
And as I was reading it, like, every single morning I just kept reciting the entire thing, like going over it once to just make sure that I remember it. And even on the final few days, I could make new connections in the theorems that I've already memorized before. Like, as I was going over it again, I realized that, oh my god, this actually falls into piece right here. That this makes sense. How did I not see this before? If you just keep
Give it time helps. Yeah.
yeah, if you just keep going over it over and over again, you can still discover new stuff. And just like in poetry, I guess, if you are reading
No, that's true.
poems,
That's absolutely
you can always notice something that you didn't notice before, like you weren't in the right mindset for it back then. Like you can maybe infer a hidden meaning or like make a connection to his other works. So repeating something does help, although that's not really a valid studying method for most of the time. Like I think it's not even a waste of time, but it's just a very
it's true.
inefficient way to
I
learn.
think there is some points you can make about it being helpful early on, but like that's about it. Like when you're a kid, you learn a little bit differently. You have a sponge. You don't have
Yeah,
a brain. You have a
and
sponge.
I
But the
guess
more time passes, like you won't have an easier time with like memorizing stuff. Like I don't know, again, calculus or poems or something like
I,
theorems or poems. It's like you might want to actually stop doing that and start thinking with a brain that you've been developing for the last I don't know 10 to 15 years.
I
So
mean,
you're right, technically, I agree with you. But at the same time, I think as a kid, as much as I hated it, as much as some nights, like shameful nights where I cried my to sleep because I was like, I can't learn this. This is horrible. What am I
oh
gonna
no,
do? Waking up in the morning the next day. Cannot recite you one single poem of those. But I know my
same.
parents for a fact they could probably recite you half of those, the ones they learned. It's like, guess it depends on the person. I'm more like you. I like to know that there's a place where I can find, I can read, I can, like if I need a map, I'll check an atlas. If I need like if I'm sick, I'll check a medical book of some sort. If I'm just interested in something, I'll just open up the economics book and read it because it's probably something that I want. It's in there, whatever. But
Honestly, the only
there's
way
people.
to correctly memorize something is to use it a lot, not just like
True,
actually
yeah,
force yourself
absolutely.
to go over it in like 5 days, like
It's the
20
same thing we
times.
talked about languages. It's you forget a language if you don't use it.
I mean, I guess one part of the language you would have use your memorization for is your vocabulary, because you can't just. I guess you can retain certain phrases or certain like words to use in a certain situation, but I guess for language learning you kind of have to memorize the vocabulary part, like
You do,
the
yeah.
words themselves and what do
Do
they mean.
associations if you want to learn, do
Yeah,
associations.
there
A
are
lot of
certain techniques. Yeah,
I don't know. For me, for example, like knowing Romanian, starting off with that, it was easier to sort of understand words in Italian, French, other languages. Knowing Russian, growing up with Russians, um, hell, some languages would help you to understand stuff in the other. Knowing English for sure, like it's surprisingly should have been the other way around, but knowing English helped me understand some words in German because I learned English I started learning it since I was 5.
Aren't they both
And
Latin languages?
what was that?
Aren't they both Latin languages?
Which ones?
The English and German and like even
English and German are
Romanian?
Germanic languages.
Oh,
They're both
Germanic. Yeah,
Germanic
I'm sorry.
based.
I'm sorry. That
Yeah, you know
yeah,
that. You know that.
I'm just
We're just
mixing them
both
up.
tired.
But they do
Uh,
belong into the same language group, I guess, right?
They do. They do. Thing is, English is just Germanic based, but influenced by French, which is a
Mm-hmm.
Latin
Mm.
language. But
Right,
it's
right.
also like French is basically just a language that was, yeah, it's influenced by Latin. That's it. So to a degree, English has a lot of Latin influence, but it's a Germanic one still.
Yeah, compared to that Hungarian, I guess we are a Finno-Ugric
Yeah.
language, so we don't have anything common really with any other language, although we have loan words, so that helps with the
You
vocabulary
do
a
have a
bit.
lot of loan words.
Yeah,
I looked into some Hungarian stuff, and you do have a lot of loan words. But everyone does, absolutely everyone does.
yeah,
Even
it
the
just
people that are like, "Haha, you use our loan words." It's like, guess what? You also use someone else's loan words.
yeah, that's just a loan word from a third language, right? Both
It's
languages
yeah. It's at
borrow
this
it.
point. At this point, it's like it's not that you have a loan word from another country. It's like every country uses the same loan words. Nobody fucking half the time you don't know where they came from.
Yeah, there are certain words like that. For example, pineapple. Everyone, like
Ananas.
every single country calls it ananas basically, or some variation of that, except English. So yeah,
Look,
that's a common way
England's
to.
got to be special somehow. Okay, let them have their day.
Ah, yeah, but I guess that makes it easier to learn because you know most languages do use the same word for it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know how I would learn languages. I only know English because I've used it a lot. Like I spend most of my time on the internet, so I just know it by association and like by just being
Honestly,
here.
your best way to learn a language is just to need it. If you
I
need it, you'll fucking learn it.
yeah, my
Like that. That's how people from my country, which are not sometimes very smart people, but sometimes definitely not smart people. They a lot of them went to work abroad often, and they learn languages in like a couple of months.
yeah, I guess this comes back to the if you don't practice something, you won't retain it. Like I did study German on like a base level, and since I was not using it unlike English, I just couldn't really remember anything of it.
You
I mean,
couldn't delve into it.
but on the other hand, the English classes for me were very easy or trivial because I already played lot of computer games, had a large vocabulary, had like a generic sense for the language itself. But if you just ask me what present perfect continuous is right now, I would not know it. And I have a
Me either.
C1 level language examination, so
Yeah, me either.
I guess that like just remembering the theory itself is not the way to learn something. Just
The best part is that stuff is just like calculus. That shit is just theorems. That shit is just like
even
basically
calculus,
It's rules. It's
you
just
know,
like a rule. It just it works like this where it became so easy that you don't have to really bother learning it. You can just like sort of like feel it. But with like math is not yet to the point where it's in your blood. It's
no,
like
no.
it kind of is.
The thing with calculus is that you are not supposed to memorize it. Like
Yeah, no,
it's
for sure.
supposed
But
to be
you're
built
supposed to
up
get
by
into it
logic.
somehow, right?
Like
Yeah,
I
exactly.
legit, I had some classmates who did not ever memorize something. They just went with the base thing and started just shaping it.
Working through there. No,
Yeah, just
absolutely. Yeah,
shape it
logic. Yeah.
and check if that direction is correct, that one holds up, that one doesn't hold up, and they could logic their way up to the result
Yeah,
that
for
they were
sure.
supposed to reach. But I the
Honestly, with grammar rules, you could almost do the same if you know them very well. But at that point, if you know them very well, you don't need to logic your way through it.
I mean,
Uh,
computer languages
it's
are basically real world languages or similar
yeah,
to it.
they are.
Like I did have some classes
You
which
basically know you know a language. You know the grammar rules for a language for a computer
like
language.
you wouldn't expect it, but I had some classes called formal languages which basically made like not even an equation, but they kind of how do I say it? Made a bijection to like just connected some aspects of the real world language and the computer languages, so they are
Hmm.
not that different.
Yeah.
But the thing with calculus is that even though you are supposed to just logic your way up there, and it's supposed to be super intuitive and logical, the the attitude was basically to okay, so here's the whiteboard, I'm gonna write everything there, and you just write it down and learn and memorize it. Like come on, is that how you are supposed to be teaching something? Like, one of my professors was, I would dare say that he's in the top three calculus, knowing people in Hungary. Like, he,
Yeah, yeah.
he is the pinnacle of calculus, basically. He was the one guy who wrote the damn book. So, and
So he knows his shit.
yeah,
He knows his
but
shit.
he couldn't for the life of him just teach, I guess, in a way, at least
No, there's
for
definitely.
me.
Oh my god, you're brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah,
knowing stuff and knowing how to teach stuff, two different things.
I
Sadly,
guess he did assume that everyone else was on his level. It's very difficult to like look to a level that's not
it
yours.
is insanely hard to teach stuff like that. Yeah, when the harder it gets, it's insanely
So
different.
he did. I guess he didn't really fail at that part, but he really couldn't just establish a common ground with the students, and it was kind of a painful experience. But I did pass in the end. So yeah, that's not how you would teach. I guess my ideal. Hmm, what would be my ideal class?
What would
Honestly,
be
I
something that you could teach?
no. I mean, my ideal class where I could learn the best. I guess I
Okay.
would need a reason for like the I don't know, the entire order of things is messed up in my opinion. So first of all, they do give you the theorems like how this is supposed to be on a high level. And then they
Yeah.
probably go into some examples if you are lucky, but I guess for me it would be way more interesting if I could see the example first and yeah, there is this problem. How do I solve it? Let's take it apart. Let's
Yeah.
see what you need for it, right?
Yeah.
Like you could
Mm-hmm.
just have a common problem that would be suitable for a lot of different subjects, and you could approach it from a lot of different views. Like you would need this calculation method for this part, right? Let's go into it. How do you do that thing exactly? Let's dive deeper into it so you have a reason to actually learn, right? Like it's not just empty theorems that oh yeah you will eventually need these things sometime in the future. Yeah, that's not motivating. The thing that motivates me is to actually obtain the tools to solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's how I view it at least. Of course, it could be different for others, right?
No, I think I'll agree with you on that, and I think most people that want to find it interesting will have to agree with that because otherwise it's just like studying like you do in school where you don't really enjoy everything, but you have to.
It's like you don't have a reason to like, or a motivation to learn that when you don't need it yet.
True, I guess.
And when by the time I need it, I kind of
Thing
regret
is,
not
you know
studying.
what counts as well? What's a big thing? It's I think people should learn stuff they don't deem interesting, but it should be on days where they can maybe like. Would be more interesting if you could just go into a class and just listen to something rather than
I
being
mean,
forced into a class.
technically you can, but bored of you to assume that I have any free time during my semesters, right? That's the issue. Like that's what I was complaining about. Like all the different professors thinking that their class is the only thing that exists. I
Yeah.
would honestly love some more freedom to just look into different classes. Just walk in, listen a bit, and then leave. Like you did bring up the Greek example at the start of the stream, right?
Yeah.
I think that was a lot more motivating for them because they could just walk into an amphitheater and listen to whatever was going on, then leave if they didn't like it, and there was not really much pressure, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there was pressure. I think there definitely should have been pressure because think about it.
Different,
People back
yeah.
then were the same as people are today. But I think there was more magic to it where you'd want like it wasn't you weren't studying to become um you weren't studying to become an engineer really generally most of the time I'm assuming. You were studying because you wanted to study because you had this desire to study. I think most people in the ancient times, like I don't know, Omar Khayyam, Aristotle, I don't know, different names, right? Most of those people would just like enjoy studying and learning. Like studying is indeed like it's magical. It's like you can uncover so many things. You can discover new things. How cool is that? How cool is that? Like that's some people that aren't very smart would do that in the physical world and find like new continents. Some people would do that in the I guess metaphysical world and find ideas, discover ideas. And this is what keeps people making people want to study, but like to this like in this day and age it's like you don't really have much of that. You have more of It's like,
It
oh,
feels
it's a job.
mandatory. Yeah, it's
It's a
basically
job.
if you don't go to university, you will fail at life. You won't ever make money. This kind of sentiment, like it's very destructive to the not the curiosity of the nowadays students, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's very exactly destructive. It inhibits the desire to grow. It like makes you like we have a saying here. It's like about like food in general. I guess I like food a lot. I don't know.
I think that's if it motivates you, then look into it, right?
It's a
Become a
lot of
world
food
class
has
chef.
that's true. I guess that's true. But a lot of food has additives like I don't know. For example, chickens will get antibiotics put into them.
Hmm.
It's not healthy. It's not good for them. It's not good for you. And it feels the same way to me. It's like you get the antibiotics basically make you grow faster, but they don't make you better.
It's it's something like a necessary evil. It does
Yeah,
improve the situation, but in return, it makes the entire thing less enjoyable and just more
yeah,
dry.
exactly. That's a very that you could take that out of context and talk about food like that, and it would still
I
work. That's
mean,
how good that example was. Good
it's a
job.
symbolism. It holds up
Yeah,
even if we are talking about the food
I
production
was talking
or
about chicken, but it was about education.
yeah,
Yes,
that's
it's
kind
like
of
you.
both.
I know. I feel like it's still like I feel people should still be very
And it
very
yeah.
happy and fortunate, like think that you're very fortunate to have schools and universities even if it's online, because it's hard for a lot of people. I think you'd get bored. That's what I'm trying to say. I think people would get so bored so fast. It's like as bad as it might be, as unhealthy in many ways as it might be, it is healthy to socialize even if you do it not in school but in university or maybe even later down the line.
Yeah,
But
as long as there's an
when one
excuse
thing
for
leads
it.
to the other, and you learn one or two new things here and there, and they will help you in life. And as much as I want to say it's like, hey, look, fuck you, teacher, math teacher, man, it's like I never used this in real life. It's like meanwhile I'm sitting there, it's like shit, that is exactly the thing he was trying to teach me that one time and I never listened. And
Yeah,
I'm like, that
you
is like you think you won't use it, you think you won't need those percentage calculations or this or that or some shit, and I'm like, if only I knew how to do that one thing. And it's like I know 90%, but I didn't listen to the last bit. I didn't listen to the last bit, and now
yeah,
I have to Google it.
surprise, surprise. People are usually right when they tell you an advice, but it just may not apply to you in that certain age or certain life situation, right? Like they do give advice for a reason. They do not give wrong advice on purpose, right?
Yeah,
They do tend to tell their experiences and what worked for them.
yeah, yeah.
So it I did have similar experiences as well. Like I did not bother listening to, for example, my parents sometimes, and turns out they were right. I just didn't see it yet.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of that. A lot of the oh shit, parents are actually right. Fuck.
Or not even parents, sometimes teachers even. They told me
Yeah.
to have better study habits, and
You know
I
what? You know
didn't
what? I
bother.
never. I was like, bro. I was like the perfect candidate for this. I was like, bro, I'm gonna be single my whole life, and like I was joking about it, and then one of my teachers was like, ha, I'll see you in a couple of years, Nixie, when you come to like back to like school with like I don't know, like they organize like school meetings and stuff like that, like every couple of years. It's like I'll see you when you come back with a girlfriend or some shit like that. And I was like, get out of here. It's like I'll be single my whole life. I'll be playing video games my whole life. It's like meanwhile I'm sitting right here right now. It's like dating someone. It's like, you know what? Teachers know their shit. Listen to them. Sometimes they'll be right. Most of the time, they'll
I mean,
actually be right because
the issue
statistically,
is sometimes they are wrong and they are very overconfident, but
very
that's
true.
what.
You know what's funny about that? One of my dad's, the dean, my dad's school's dean was like, oh, so this is what I see in this student. He's going to be a good engineer, a good like biologist, a good like economist, a good like he can work in the field, he can work in the factory, he can do this. He gave him a list of like 50 to 60 like things he could work as, and none of them was lawyer, and he became a lawyer. So it's like they might know a lot of stuff. He might have been right. He's actually very smart and very good at a lot of things. But guess what? Like you don't always know.
I mean, I've seen Jordan Peterson talk about the IQ relating to your field of job, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
if
I
as long
like
as
I
it's
like
on
people.
the similar level, then yeah, it still is a pretty accurate prediction.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty. Like he wrote most of the stuff that he wrote was actually something my dad understood stuff in. Like they did do. Like it's actually the guy was actually very smart to understand that. Okay, so because he knows this about math, he did this test very well because he tested them. He saw them right. he understood it's like he could do this stuff related to engineering because of this, and this, right? So yeah, some of
Yeah,
this
he
stuff
has good
is
logic. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, something like along those lines. Or people that were like very good, I don't know, poets, they'd be like, okay, so this is going to be a communist propagandist. It's perfect. Good luck.
I mean, if he is good at manipulating people and is good at twisting their words, then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's not a very proud job to have. But if he's good at that, then
Puts the bread on the table, you know.
sometimes you need people like that. Of course, not that kind of propaganda, but you
Yeah,
need
probably
you
not that
need
one.
people who can influence others in the correct direction. The only problem is what the correct direction is. I let's hope that it's not something destructive for once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
But yeah, as I don't know if I should go back to this point, but yeah, studying should be fun.
yeah,
Like
I
it's
agree.
the
It
entire.
helps so much.
It's a tragedy that nowadays people, even including myself, think that studying is boring, is hellish, is just a pain to deal
It's
with.
because it's in big amounts. When you have that much shit to learn, it's useless. Like I could have done without half the stuff that I studied, and I'd be much happier, I think, and I'd be probably better at the stuff that I did like and studied. Thing
And
is, I think what did I want to tell you? I'm so sleepy right now. I did not expect to be asleep at this hour. Like my sleep schedule's turned around again. Point is, I fuck yeah.
let me just get on with my point, and
Go
then
for it.
maybe
Go
you
for it. I
can
had
just
something
remember.
something very important, but
So
you're good.
the real strategy of the real tragedy of people thinking that studying is a pain is that you have to study or at least learn one way or another your entire life. It basically consists of learning
Yeah.
new things. Like you have to learn how the I don't know your taxes work. You have to learn how to drive. You have to learn how to start a family if you decide to do so. You have to learn how to raise children. You have to learn how to cook if you want that. You have to learn how to I don't know fix your clogged toilet or something. You everything you want to do and you don't know how to do
Sorry, your
yet.
Glock or
You no the toilet.
your
You if your toilet is clogged, you know.
okay, clogged toilet. Okay,
Yeah.
because there's like the Glocks, or I don't know anything
So,
about guns. That's
some people will have to do that as well, but the entire life is basically problem solving in a way. And if you don't have
yeah,
the necessary knowledge, you have to learn one way or another. And if at this very early age you kind of burn into your brain that studying is pain, studying is something negative, then it will be a pain for your entire life as well, right? Unless you change your mentality somehow, which is very difficult to do. So your entire life will be suffering
yeah.
if your attitude is
Well,
that.
if you take breaks, you'll recover, but it's still true that you will you will suffer a lot if you just base your time. Yeah, if you do it like that.
Yeah, like just destroying the
To
motivation of
continue.
children this early is.
I wanted to say that I remember the example of your calculus teacher guy. It's like he was the best, but he could not teach.
I mean,
It's like
that's.
you need someone that can bring the fun into said thing. It's like
Mhm.
get someone that can teach in a fun way, and get the calculus guy. Put them together, and you'll make a brilliant
Actually,
sandwich.
funny thing, my calculus lab teacher was one of the best teachers I met. Like he was
Actual
a very
teacher,
fun
yeah.
guy. He was very unique, I guess. He wasn't really like other teachers. He was kind of how do I describe him? He was a free spirit, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
had his own style. But oddly enough, it was motivating enough for me to study, and that kind of saved me on the exam as well because I did complete the lab assignments and I did pass the lab test. So I guess I did manage to learn calculus from that side, and by learning examples, I could in turn gather enough motivation and reason to actually learn the theorems as well, like to justify
Mhm.
for myself that they were useful. But the order was messed up, so
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't just bring myself to learn during the semester because I've seen no real use for it, right?
Hmm.
So luckily I had a good calculus lab teacher. But oh man,
It
one of
definitely
my
helps. Yes.
the year previous to that year, the other lab teacher was horrible. I've heard. So that's again just the draw the luck. So if you get a horrible teacher, you will either fail or you will leave the. Even if you are successful at the exam, you will just it will just leave a bad aftertaste in your mouth, right?
Hmm.
Like just having bad teachers, and this is why countries
I
should be
fully agree with that. It
focusing
will
on.
leave. Like you'll feel bad about it, and uh, it doesn't really help if you get like 5 good teachers afterwards. It's still gonna be like,
Yeah, this is why it should be so important to ensure quality teachers. Like, if a
yeah,
teacher is bad, then make them change their ways somehow, because it only takes one bad teacher to discourage somebody for almost life in a certain subject. Like, if you have a, for example, a bad biology teacher, then you won't ever pursue biology after school, right? Like, even if you, unless you get a get a reason
mm,
to, like, okay, let's just say that
I had a shit history teacher. I still liked history,
yeah, but that's
but I
that's
agree with
because
you.
EU4, right?
It's not gonna help. It lowers your chances of like being able to enjoy it. Maybe.
Like, if you, unless, that's what I was kind of referring to. If you get a entire different reason to study something, then that's fair. But if you don't even ever give it a chance, then it will be way more difficult later. For example, I didn't really like geography back then. All the different, like, industry areas of Hungary. I couldn't really be bothered by. Oh my God, they are making steel there. They are making crops there, and so on. I don't care. Like, why would I care as
Yeah,
a, as a
yeah,
as a 14-year-old, right? And now that I'm
yeah.
playing EU4, it finally gives me a valid
Yeah.
reason to learn it, right? But I would have never bothered with it back then. So, again, studying and learning is fun if the situation calls for it, right?
Yeah.
But if the
Imagine if you had to study with E4. Oh my
I mean,
god.
if there were mandatory EU4 exams, I would not like EU4, man. I
Yeah.
would not like it. So that's
Like you
again
need you need to do a world conquest in 45 minutes. Good luck.
That's again a lesson to take home, I guess, is that if you are interested in something, and if you are doing something out of your own will, like, you're not forced to learn for an exam, for example, you are going to be doing way better than the mandatory ones, right?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't just be depressed and have a negative overlook on life because, oh my God, I can't learn anything, I can't bring myself to learn at all. Like, how will I succeed in life, right? If you
Yeah.
find something that actually motivates you, you will be studying on your own and you will be
You will be,
motivated.
and you will succeed in life. That's a very. You are a brilliant psychologist right there.
Like,
It's
just
like you just need to find something you like, and you can probably like make $1,000,000 with it.
yeah, just because you don't like studying right now, and I bet a lot of almost everybody dislikes at least part of the school system or studying, doesn't mean that it has to be this way for the rest of your life, right?
No, absolutely, I agree. Yeah,
Like,
that's
you
brilliant.
just find, again, that's probably why I gave the advice earlier. Just find a subject or find a topic that is interesting to you, and just attempt to understand it on a more deep level.
Go
Even
ham.
even if you fail, it's not a mandatory thing, right? In middle school.
Yeah,
So if you just participate in an after classes curriculum, right? You won't lose anything other than a few hours of your life, right? Arguably, a few hours is very important again, but it can be worth it. You may learn something very useful. You may just expand your niche knowledge. Who knows? You may even fail at learning it and just stop going to that curriculum. But as long as you try, it can't really hurt now, can it?
true. I like your chat being like, I hated this class, I loved that class, that teacher sucked, this teacher is good.
Yeah, most of
It's
the
like
time it's about the teacher again. Just like how a child is shaped by their parents mostly, right? The studies
yeah,
part is
yeah.
shaped by the teachers.
It's I want to say though, it's funny that I had like a very strict teacher, like a very hardcore like dude, like he was so ready to like yell. He didn't like it though. Like he wasn't like a guy that enjoyed being a dick. Because there's definitely teachers that, or people in general, that like being dicks. This one didn't like it, and I regret ever being like, if I ever like, I'm trying to remember. Yes, I definitely did some dumb shit with him too. But point is, like, he was such a fucking like, I don't know. Everyone hated him because of the way he like, I don't know, argued. But at the same time, almost everyone expected him. Like he was very smart, and he was actually kind in his own ways. Like I remember, like even seeing that kindness, like once in like 5 to 6 years that I've studied under him. But yeah, like it's like sometimes you just can't. Like a good teacher would be. In my case, my English teacher was someone that I looked up. I always will. I think it's like just generally a kind guy, but he worked well with being kind being a good teacher, sometimes strict, sometimes disciplined and disciplining students. But
Yeah.
he worked well with that. Like he made it fun as well. Like I remember like we watched the movie The Thing. It's like who the fuck, like who the fuck gives that to like kids to watch? But it was super fun with like a group of people. It's like a horror movie, whatever. Nobody really got scared. Everyone just like watched it and listened to the English stuff. And meanwhile, it's like there's other teachers that are brilliant, like you said, right? And they can't really teach. They can't make it fun. It's hard for them too. It's hard to be a teacher. People need to understand that too. It's very hard to be a teacher. And if you have a teacher, just like probably let him do his shit. If he's dumb, he probably won't be a teacher for long. If he's smart,
I would. That professor was like 80 something years old and he was the head of the department, so he can't really be fired, you know?
yeah,
So, so not
well,
always.
you know, God will fire him when his time comes.
I honestly don't wish him bad stuff, even though his political views were very outdated as well, and I just dislike him in general. He is still, first of all, a very talented individual, and I'm sure he's not malicious. He's just
Yeah, but
he's
it's
just a
hard, bro.
relic
It's
of the
hard. Sometimes
past.
you pretend the best and you do the worst. Like the Russians have a saying, "Хотелось как лучше, получилось как всегда," means you wanted to do the best, but you did it like always. So yeah, right there.
Yeah, interestingly, I find that the teachers who recently graduated are a lot more in touch with the students because, of course, they were students as well a few years ago, and therefore
Mhm.
they know kind of how to motivate them and know how what they need a bit more. Like, for example, I had my best friend and classmate be my teacher for one of the classes, and he knew what he was doing. Like, he spoke our language basically.
Yeah,
Like, it was a whole different experience than like an old professor trying to teach you and failing at it, right?
yeah, yeah, and then the other side.
Like schools and like and this is kind of why it's a tragedy that young people are less reluctant or I guess less motivated to become a teacher because the education is not really getting advanced right now because they are that's a political issue but that's a different story but
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
the reason why education is so important to continuously like progress is that younger and newer teachers are more motivating to students, right?
for
At
sure.
least most
It's
of
so
them.
much more fun to talk to younger teachers as well. I remember like we had this one teacher, which funnily enough was the daughter of the guy that I got annoyed by, and everyone hated but also respected. And she was like the complete opposite. She was like fun to talk to. She was fun to talk to separately from her own subject, right?
Yeah, I guess you either
And
learn from your parents or from the mistakes of your peers, right?
yeah,
It's either
so
negative or a positive example.
yeah,
But yeah, like if every single young teacher just doesn't become a teacher or goes abroad, then the only ones who remain are going to be the older ones. And while there are a bunch of good old teachers as well, like the entire quality and mindset is going to be a bit more outdated, and therefore there will be an even more huge
we'll be out.
disparity between the students and the teachers, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And that's not healthy. Like
It
that's
will be outdated, but it's like it's not always the worst thing to have like a little bit of old school around yourself when you're doing stuff, even if it's newer stuff, right? It's like sometimes it's good to rely on something that's older because I feel like more and more people just I take it as I don't know, like how would I say this? It's like not everything that's new is always good. There's definitely like a lot of new stuff that can be
I
detrimental.
mean
It's like you
experience
get
is good if it's not outdated yet.
what was that?
Experience is good. It's almost the best thing ever if
It
it's not
is. It is.
outdated.
Yeah. There's definitely bad stuff about like like old teachers being like bringing like old shit to the table, right? But like it's also good to have experience and knowledge, practice, and stuff like that because you're more confident in that case. You know things better.
I mean you would trust an
So
old doctor more than a younger one, right?
I definitely would trust.
Even though the younger one can be just as skilled as the old one,
It could be. It definitely could be. But I
like based on my
definitely personally
experience.
would trust the older one. I had experiences like actually. Yeah. I definitely trust the older one if unless the younger one proves themselves. So
Yeah, but for fields that change very, very quickly, like IT or just teaching in general, like being able to do something well again and teaching something or at least obtaining a common ground with the students and whoever is willing to listen can be very different things. Like it doesn't really reflect your knowledge. So you kind of have
Uh,
to be good at multiple things to become a teacher. And
yeah, yeah.
honestly, like I have a huge respect for those teachers who can maintain both at the same time.
True, absolutely.
Like the
I,
ones
I
who
just
go
know way too
above
many
and
teachers
beyond.
that could not open up a fucking laptop and make it work to get their. You probably had enough of those that could make their online classes work, right?
I mean, we are an IT university, so we don't really
Okay,
have a
okay. So you,
problem
you
there,
definitely had the good ones.
luckily.
Okay,
But
hopefully,
some of them couldn't, like based on one of my lab leaders, like one of the teachers actually is holding a lab, like, that you can just work at and solve tasks.
that's that's cool.
And he was telling us about a bunch of that. So some of the teachers couldn't even stream properly with OBS, even though they were specifically instructed on how to do everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess I do like the teachers who just maintain a younger mindset, like always being open to learning new stuff. That's what they want the students to have, right? And then they can't hold the same thing by themselves. That's kind of a bad outlook on them, right? Like that's probably
Yeah.
why you view the teachers who can't even bother to learn new stuff as some hypocrite, I guess, because they expect you to learn new stuff, but they can't be
Learner
bothered
stuff,
to
yeah.
learn themselves, right?
But at the same time, it's like younger people, I think, learn easier. But you're right about this
That's
one.
that's
I like that.
true.
Also, that comment about the literature and history. Yeah, it's like with older literature and history people, it's like you do tend to have more. Like you need older people because that assumes they might have already read more, so they can talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
more. Because history and literature is generally basically talking.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
it's
read a lot, talk a lot. That's it.
yeah,
You've
those
got
those subjects are not really changing that much, right?
yeah.
Like they stay the same, or even mathematics. Sure, there are new developments, but the essence is the same. So calculus doesn't just change overnight, right?
Yeah.
And that's why older people can just be way better at what they do. On the other hand, some stuff which changes really fast, for example, I don't know, cryptography or what can I say, for example, machine learning,
Uh,
neural networks.
fair
Like
point.
the younger people, or at least those who have the mathematical foundation and are older, but are still willing to adapt, are in a huge advantage there. Like just being able to continuously improve and be on top of the entire thing, like be up to date with the state of the art, although that just requires a huge time investment. Yeah, that's also a good point. If a teacher cannot ever admit to just being wrong, like, yeah, I was wrong, I did research this after the class and turns out you were right, I'm sorry. This is such a difficult phrase to say for most of them, surprisingly. Like, all of those teachers just hold their pride so high and mighty, especially the elementary and middle school ones, right? They can't ever take a kid being right and then being wrong, right? That's a weird way to phrase it,
I
but
don't think they could. They'd explode. I
yeah,
think. Yeah.
it's like embarrassing to them that a 14-year-old can be more knowledgeable at something that they are.
Too.
And
Yeah. I've had situations like that.
like that's
But I
just
feel bad for them though.
yeah, that's not a good situation for any of the involved. Like
Anyone involved, yeah, that's like the parents would be like, "Ooh, like is my kid even learning anything there?"
yeah, the kid just loses faith in the entire system and that loses respect for his teacher. The teacher just becomes angry and is having a breakdown over their worldview being questioned. And oh my god, how can I be wrong? I cannot ever be wrong. Like it's just not a healthy discussion for anyone really if they can't admit that they were wrong. And it also just signals that they are not looking at the students as equal peers, right? Like they just look at themselves as somebody who is superior to them, which shouldn't be the case.
I agree with the Miss Lady Halloween. It's like you'd be being wrong would probably raise their yeah. If you admit that you fucked up, you'd probably get more respect out of it, and the people would be like, okay, so that person's open. They're ready for a discussion, right? I
Yeah.
had a teacher that once made me realize that teachers are people too, and they you get more out of studying if you just work together. I remember we had a colleague that could not learn. I think it was the national anthem. We, for some reason, were they're like, okay, for this class, you need to learn the anthem, whatever. Uh, and he could not. He could just not do it, or some shit like that, or it was something else. It was something in English, I think. And like she just offered to help him because I was helping him study, and she saw that I was doing that even though I didn't have to, and she just offered. It's like, hey, like we were doing it like it was like grade 3 or 2 or some shit like that. We were kids, and we were after class, right? Like we were just sitting there, and it was the kindest thing ever. It was the nicest thing ever. She like took her time to help a kid, even though she was just supposed to be there to like that was actually what they were supposed to be there, just to like sort of make sure the kids don't kill each other. And the kids would just like basically, yeah. I mean, it's kids. Oh my god, bro! Did I tell you about the one case where I had to be a teacher for one lesson? I realize that being a teacher for low classes, like you actually need to be strict
Oh
because
yeah, yeah, younger
I
people, yeah.
guarantee you, like 5 of them would have killed each other. It's like one was like with the fucking not with a knife, but with the fucking like scissors, like cutting to the other one. I was like,
Man,
no.
man, 11
Like
year olds are scary.
half of it I was just having to tell them to sit down and then to like pick them up and put them back on the thing, and they would not listen to me.
Yeah,
So
I
you
would
know what,
never
teachers,
ever become an elementary school teacher. Like that's just
you'd have to
outside my.
yell, you'd have to scare kids. It's like that's what teaching is. You literally have to just scare people, which is insanely
I mean, at least teenagers
bad.
can be reasoned with, right?
Yeah, you can tell them, look, if you fuck up, that's on you. Congrats, it's like you fucked up, son. But if it's a kid, the kid won't fucking listen. Kid got to be yelled at or like
I mean,
slap his butt or some shit like that. But that's like I don't want to do that. It's like that's you know
yeah, I mean, I can
it's a
completely
fucking kid.
understand them. They are very young, they have a lot of energy, and they are forced to just sit in a class for 60 minutes, I
Yeah.
don't know, and,
No,
and,
I
and do
get the
nothing.
kids. I get the kids, but like at the same time, it's like I also get the teachers that don't want to be sued by the parents in case like one kid like takes the eye out of another kid, and it's a thing. Yeah,
It's
could
just the
be.
failure of the system in general.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's why we
this.
should have all those kids in lock and chains, working in the fields as God intended. Wait, what? I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, but this is
I love
probably
studying.
why
Studying is great.
Waldorf schools are more and more popular. Like just
Which
especially
ones?
the Waldorf schools, which don't just have the scheduled stuff, and they kind of have more free activities. I don't know. I don't really have, apart from the one movie that I watched one time. I don't really have much experience or information on them. But the current system is kind of outdated in my opinion. Like, is
Yeah.
how do you expect somebody, especially a child, to wake up at like 6 a.m. and go to school? That's it's not healthy for them. I remember when I was that young, I usually slept like 5 hours because I wanted to play on the computer as well, like until 1 a.m. and then go to
Yeah.
sleep, wake up at like 5:14 and something, and just go to school. And I hated everything that there was.
I don't know. Like, I want to argue on your side. I want to be like, yes, I agree with that. But at the same time, it's like I also don't want to be lazy. It's like sometimes I just want to be like,
I guess you
I
have
also,
to learn how to control your laziness, and if you are just continuously forced to just sit there and be disciplined, then you would hate being disciplined, right? Like you
yeah.
would want to be lazy. You would want to rebel against the system when you are that young. So in a weird twist of fate, the very thing that wants to make them more disciplined is making them less disciplined because they want to do whatever the opposite is that they are being told.
Um.
Yes, as a kid you want to sleep like 8 or more hours to be healthy, right? And I slept like 5. That's why my
I mean,
long-term
that's
memory
the
is
thing
fucked
though. As
up.
a kid, I could sleep 3 hours and still go. But I was like, it's like, but Dad, I'm playing WoW. I'm raiding. I gotta like finish the raid. It's like it's only like 3 a.m. I'll be fine. It's like, yeah, no, you
Mm,
won't. But
well,
it's
actually,
as
back
an adult though. As an adult, as a smoker even, I kind of stopped. But doesn't change the fact that I remember being a smoker and trying to wake up in time. I was like, oh god, that was a fucking chore. But as a kid, no, as a kid, I definitely could wake up. I didn't like it. God knows I didn't like it. There is some beauty in just like going up in the morning. It's like you see the sun, you get to smell the flowers, or
I mean,
maybe I don't know the shit in case you know.
that's not a valid point. I go to bed at like 6 a.m., so I can see the same thing as well.
I guess.
But yeah, that's I guess my
I will
point
add
is
one thing.
to.
I will add one thing. I'm kind of getting tired because I don't know. I'm sorry, my sleep schedule is just weird. But
That's
I want
fine.
I wanted to say that God were the days when skipped school were those the
Mm,
best days like that I slept. It's like knowing that you have to do something very important as well, and skipping that was for some odd reason the best sleep I ever had. To this day, I still haven't managed to get a night's rest that was that enjoyable as when I was like, ah, fuck it, I won't go to school today, and just like slept in. And God bless that I could do that. Thank you. But it's weird. I don't know. Yeah, it was something that you can't mimic to this day. It's like I
yeah.
go to bed, I don't rest enough, but as soon as I woke up, I was like, ah, fuck it. I went back to bed. It was like the sweetest sleep ever.
Yeah, I guess I was a very obedient kid because even if it was like after 3 hours of sleep, I did get up to the alarm and I did go to school whenever it
Yeah,
was. Like if I didn't wake up on time properly, like if I just went back to bed, you would know that there was something seriously wrong with me, like an illness or something, because otherwise I would just go to school at any cost really. Like even if I had 2 hours of sleep, I would just go in and be very tired for the entire day, but I would be present there.
yeah.
Like looking back
It's
at
good. No,
it.
it's good. You were disciplined in that sense. See, I wasn't. I was more of a like a Greek poet. You know, like I was sitting there with
Yeah.
my oils, just like rubbing them into my body and like reading poems and shit.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, this man
meanwhile,
over here was
meanwhile,
like just
if I have to get up, I will get up.
yeah, yeah.
That's basically it.
That's good. No, that's good. I respect that. I
Mm,
admire that.
I guess it like
I never did one thing though. I never was late for a class. Like I'd rather not go to the class and be late. But I was never late. I was like 1 hour ahead. Another thing is for people that are still in school or some shit like that, bring enough pens. It's like, oh god, I had so many. Like I'm not sure. Maybe in the West, maybe in civilized countries, because you guys got enough pencils and pens everywhere. But I think through my like 12 years of school and like 4 years of uni, I've probably wasted like 1 to 200 pens just by giving them to other kids that were like, I'm not prepared for the test. I don't have a fucking pen. I was like, got you.
actually that should be a good advice for teachers as well, right? Like
Yeah, prepare more pens.
they should have the entire case of just pens to give out whenever somebody doesn't have
They
a.
should. They're not that expensive. They're not that
Yeah.
expensive.
Also, like for online classes, it's very. Is it difficult though? Like I could still get up to my alarm even if it was an online class. But yeah,
Mhm.
I guess the weird shift in my sleep schedule is also due to online classes because they always just started afternoon and like I would just sleep until noon basically. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I also went to classes way too early and would just sit there for like 30 minutes extra, and I don't know. I would sleep in class. Like I'd wake up by sleeping in class and being like, this is not comfy. I'll just wake up right now.
Yeah. I always used to sleep during literature class. Even though the teacher was very kind and everything, I just couldn't bother to really pay
No, it's boring.
attention there.
Literature is boring as shit. Like unless you're invested into it, and literature, you have to look at it like you look at mythology, but like you have to, or history, I guess. You have to sort of be invested into it like a fucking TV show at that point, or at least understand that there can be something that you could be invested. Like there can be some kind of a drama, a mission of some kind, and it could end up being interesting, but it could also end up being boring as shit.
Yeah. Rockham does bring up a good point. Actually, that was my experience as well because my bus was kind of rare and didn't really go often to the high school that I was studying at, and therefore I arrived like 50 minutes earlier as well. And well,
Yeah.
guess what? Those 50 minutes were the perfect time to either sleep or do my homework there.
Yeah. I know most kids were like that. But imagine that, like, literally every morning, like, well, maybe not during COVID, but every morning, kids around the world are just waking up, going to school, making their
Mm,
homework at the school for 15 minutes before. There's so many. Like, I did that, you did that, a lot of people did that.
everyone did that, I think, probably.
Probably everywhere,
I mean,
Europe,
homework
America.
Homework should be important because it does introduce repetition and you learn by repetition, right? But
They do, yeah,
it's just like after you get home, the last thing you want to do is to keep studying, right?
yeah. Too
Hmm.
kills the mood, kills the spirit.
Yeah, I had to
Okay,
wake up at like 5 something. Anyway, yeah, if is there any topic that we wanna discuss or
I'm,
should
I'm
we?
I'm trying to think. Why my brain's gone into brain dead mode.
Alright, so should we just call it here, I guess?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Now let me just find somebody to raid in that case. No, it's not a problem. It was more than 2
Mhm.
hours. We did just fine, right?
Did we?
I
Oh my lord.
think I have the
This
perfect
was interesting though.
target.
I'll definitely be watching next one.
Absolutely.
This was just interesting to discuss.
Yeah, I guess there is a lot of stuff that was unsaid, even from like considering this topic, but we did at least touch on
Mhm.
most of the subjects, right? Like, I guess if anything comes to mind, we can just elaborate it on later.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess I will see you guys on the next podcast, right? And let
I'll be
me
here.
let me rate
I'll be in the
somebody.
chat. Sorry. I'll be with you guys.
All right, so let me rate somebody who has a bit of a different stream right now, but it should be entertaining. And I honestly have no idea who I will invite for the next podcast, but just keep an eye out for it. I'm sure it
Great.
will be amazing. I will make it amazing even if it if it breaks me. No,
That'd be great.
I probably won't go that far just to preserve my own
Misha,
mental
have a
health.
good one as well.
But
I see
yeah.
Misha came.
Anyway, thank you, Nixon, for
Thank
participating.
you.
It
Thank you
was
so much.
fun.
It was
I
fun.
will definitely have you on a future podcast. You're a great
Chill.
guy, and we did have fun. And I think we did manage to give a good enough show, right, guys?
For
Anyway,
next time, I'll prepare more. I
yeah,
promise.
I will
I'll have more
probably
support.
invite you soon enough. Like I'm starting to run out of guests actually, so
No,
I
that's the
will.
perfect. That's why you need to get more people and then invite them and be like,
Yeah.
come to the podcast. No.
Anyway, I would be glad to have you on the podcast again sometime.
Thank you
So
guys. Thank you. Thank you, Chad. You were fun to look at. I was looking at Nordicus in the chat here. It's
yeah.
like you guys are, you got it.
So catch you guys later. Bye bye.
And